humanity to stand up in the info war and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Until Monday at midnight, you can get 30% off everything at NoWorldOrder.com. That's the non-GMO heirloom seeds, the water filtration systems, the incredible high-quality nutraceuticals, vitamins, and minerals, the Hillary for Prison t-shirts, and more. This is the first leap year sale we've ever done, and it's the biggest sale in our history. 30% off, free shipping at InfoWarsLife.com and InfoWarsStore.com, or simply call toll-free 888-253-3139. Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction, easy assembly, low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139.
Welcome to this live edition of the InfoWars Nightly News. It's Super Tuesday, March 1st, 2016. I'm David Knight.
And we have got a jam-packed show for you tonight. We're going to be here for the next few hours with you live. The whole crew will be here. Jakari Jackson, Darren McBreen, Joe Biggs. Be sure to tweet us any of your questions and comments. We'll also be taking your phone calls later in the show, so be sure to pay attention. We'll be giving out that phone number to call in, taking your phone calls live. We'll be speaking with InfoWars investigative journalist Wayne Madsen. Richard Reeves is out on the streets there at some polling locations here in Texas. As well, we'll be speaking with Trump insider Roger Stone.
Yes, and of course, tonight is a do-or-die situation for Ted Cruz, for Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio needs to show that he can come in and win something. He's been the bronze medalist in so many different contests. And of course, right now, he's coming in bronze in most places. He's looking for a silver in Virginia. Right now, we've got about 11 to 12% in. Georgia has been called for Donald Trump with 51%, 12% of the vote in, 51% for Donald Trump. Cruz is in second at 21%, 30 points behind Trump. Marco Rubio is at 18%. And of course, a lot of these states, they have to get a threshold in order to get any delegates. That's the real key thing here. And when you look at Texas, for example, they have to have 20% or more to get any delegates. And the delegates are kind of split. What we've seen in the past is in New Hampshire, for example, we had an allocation of delegates based on a statewide percentage basis. All the allocation of delegates before March 15th has to be done on some sort of a proportional basis. However, there are certain occasions, like in Texas, if the front runner gets more than 50%, there is a clause where they can take everything under those circumstances. But typically what you see is like what we had in New Hampshire. It was allocated at large. In other words, they took the statewide percentages and allocated the delegates based on that. They had to get at least 10%. Most of the states today, they have a higher threshold of 10%. Now, in South Carolina, it was a little bit different situation. There, the delegates were awarded on a congressional district basis. So they looked at each congressional district and they allocated the delegates to whoever won that. In that case, Donald Trump won every single congressional district, so he won all the delegates there. Tonight, what we're going to see is kind of a mixture of those two approaches. In Texas, we're going to have delegates that are about 2/3 of delegates are allocated on a congressional district basis. The winner will get 2 of 3 delegates, and the second place person will get 1. And the third place winner will get a set of Ginsu steak knives or something like that, okay? Then they will look at it on a statewide basis, and that's going to be about 1/3 of the delegates. And again, they have to have 20% or more in order to even be eligible to get some of those delegates. So right now, what we're seeing is in Virginia and Vermont, they've not called it yet. There's 11% in Virginia. Donald Trump is ahead by 9 percentage points. And Marco Rubio, it's 39 for Trump, 30 for Rubio. Cruz is at 18%. In Vermont, we've got Trump at 37%, Kasich at 26%. So there, Donald Trump has a 10-point lead with 15% of the vote in. And Rubio is in third place at 19%. So in each of these cases, the third place person is not at the 20% threshold level, but that's not a rule across all states. Well, it's a very complicated situation, and it varies by state to state. But of course, Cruz needs to win in Texas. Everybody expects Cruz to win. If he doesn't win, it's basic. Most people are saying that's going to be the end of his campaign. If he does win, it really doesn't help him all that much because everybody has expected him to win.
Well, it's interesting now because this is the era where everyone is a winner. Everyone gets participation trophies. So everyone's saying at the second place winner and the third place, he got a third place win. And
yeah, well, things are going to start to shake out once we get to March 15th because then states will be allowed to do a winner-take-all situation. And that's where you're going to have some big states like Florida where Marco Rubio is not winning.
Right,
if he loses Florida to Donald Trump and doesn't get a single delegate out of his home state, that is really going to be amazing. But it won't necessarily put him out of the running. You know, we have to dispel once and for all with the fiction that Marco Rubio can't win. That's what the establishment keeps telling us. They say, the establishment knows exactly what it's doing, to paraphrase Marco Rubio. The establishment is undertaking a systematic effort to change this country to make America more like the rest of the world. It's a systematic effort to change America. And, of course, Marco Rubio is their puppet to do just that. And maybe I should repeat that another 6 times like Marco Rubio did.
Well, we
but
know
that's what's at stake.
Yeah, and I mean, and of course the Republican establishment is desperate to knock Trump out of this race, make sure he doesn't make it to the White House. Everyone is shaking. Wall Street fears him.
And of course, that's what we're going to be talking to Roger Stone and Richard Reeves, is what's going to happen with the delegate situation. Because you've got a couple of different ways that they can play this. One of them is they can just go with the wishes of the voters, and they can consolidate behind Donald Trump and say, we're going to try to beat Hillary Clinton. Nah, they won't do that.
Yeah, because they can see what the voters are saying Trump, and everyone's rallying around to say, dump Trump and never Trump.
They can try to get everybody out and make it a one-on-one, okay? Well, they don't really control that. You got a lot of people that are very ambitious with that, but they don't seem to have any interest in doing that. And the third thing they can do is just let everybody stay in and go until they have a brokered convention. And one of the key things about this that we all need to understand is that when you look at a big state like Texas, we got 155 delegates here in Texas. The RNC has reserved for itself 150 delegates. So the RNC is kind of has reserved essentially a state as big as Texas for themselves. And of course, the only other state that's bigger than Texas is California with 172 delegates. So when we look at this, you know, you've got a tremendous impact that the establishment can have once they get to the convention.
Well, and that was something that I wanted to talk to a little bit with Richard and possibly Roger Stone is, so there's Roger Stone sort of broke that there with Alex Jones, that the establishment is planning on holding Mitt Romney back in the wings. How does that work? If he hasn't done any of the debates, he hasn't gone through this whole process, and then they can just bring him in there at the convention. How does...
Well, you know, that's quite frankly, I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah.
See, I think that's what's going to happen is if they try to rig the system like that, it's going to be pretty obvious to everybody. There's a lot of media out there that's going to call them on it. And so it's going to be obvious to everybody. People are going to be very angry. Donald Trump is not going to quietly leave the scene and bow out graciously, nor are his supporters. It's going to be a fight. And what you're going to wind up having is a scorched earth policy where they are going to literally destroy the Republican Party. Now, it's not to say that they won't do that, because here's the thing, Leanne. If you look at 4 years ago, Mitt Romney and Barack Obama were there to make sure that we got Obamacare. It had been Romney Care in Massachusetts. He had pushed that through with Ted Kennedy. So they had two candidates who, on their core issue, were going to make this happen, whichever way it went. Now, you had a little bit of a choice. You know, you could have, some ketchup on it, or you could have mustard on it, one or the other. But you were going to get the hot dog one way or the other, okay? And so when you look at it this time, what is the big enchilada that's there? Well, they're getting close to 2020, 2025, where they want to consolidate everything to this technocracy, this globalist union. And one of the key things that they have to do with this is the economic union, and that's the trade treaties that they're ready to ram through. And of course, the open borders are part of that. The climate treaty with the globalist taxation, what they call cap and trade. It's going to be a carbon tax. There'll be the economy will be controlled. The taxes will be controlled by a globalist multinational committee that is going to operate independently of us. That is their key thing. That is more important to them than preserving the Republican Party, in my opinion. Right. And that's the thing that Donald Trump will shut down. Absolutely. And so to shut down Donald Trump and to make this happen, I could see them basically, going full-blown funeral pyre and setting this whole thing on fire. Yeah. No, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. You could see the writing on the wall with the fact that we've got Rubio and Haley and just these people that aren't and they're not having American any effect. You look at South Carolina, right? You take Trey Gowdy, who is a high-ranking congressman from South Carolina. You got Nikki Haley, who is the governor of South Carolina. You got Tim Scott, who's a new senator, black senator, first one that they've had since Reconstruction in the South. All from South Carolina, all going with Rubio from place to place throughout the state, had absolutely no effect on it. Absolutely no effect. He didn't get a single delegate. He finished way behind Donald Trump. People just aren't buying it. They've been lied to too many times by the establishment. This is going to be a major realignment one way or the other. Yeah, on and so the question is, how is it going to go down? Is it going to be a major realignment, just going through and letting the Democratic process work, or is it going to be a major realignment when the establishment comes in with a scorched earth policy? And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there with the Democratic Party as well, because it seems, just based on the crowd sizes for people that have been showing up for Bernie Sanders, a lot of people really want Bernie to win. They're very proud. They say, I'm voting for Bernie, feeling the burn. They have no shame with that, whereas with Clinton, everyone's like, I'm not voting. They don't want to admit it. He's getting huge crowds, and then, of course, there was this article today about, that was up on the Drudge Report from the Weekly Standard, in front of a tiny crowd. Chelsea Clinton denounces racist, homophobic, sexist Republicans. 75 people. 75 people. That's why they're imploding, because all they can do is play this little political correctness divisional card. Right. And that's what people aren't buying. We have a great clip. I want to pull this clip up that we've got of the MSNBC trying to run this clip showing that Donald Trump is a racist. And then they go to the package that the reporter had actually put together at a Trump rally, and there's a black person that he talked to, and the black person shuts this down, and the anchor, who is black, is speechless because this whole thing failed. Have you guys got that clip ready? They set the whole thing up, and it was a fail. Yeah. Let me know when you got that clip. Let's run that clip. Okay, let me know when you got that clip. Meanwhile, okay, they're about to get that clip up, I think. We're ready to run it?
That Katrina just didn't tell you was that David Duke says, I don't endorse Donald Trump, but people should vote for him. Yeah. So Duke is indeed endorsing him and telling people to vote for him. And the real big question here is why? If you're Donald Trump, why would a KKK, white supremacist guy want people to vote for you? That's the question that Donald Trump needs to be asked. Well, the question is also being asked. A lot of attention has been placed on his candidacy, Donald Trump, in the media. Now you have reports saying, listen, what about his supporters? What are we learning about his supporters, the new people truly that he is, to his point, bringing into. And this is the black anchor who is talking about this. Actually, now listen to this. One of our reporters, and I don't want to quote the wrong reporter here. Let's go ahead. I got this. This is breaking in. We're actually going to see who these Trump supporters are. Trump supporters. Let's play what they said. They don't know what they're going to get.
David Duke and people like that, they come out of out from under the rocks all the time around this time this year. It got nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're all Americans. I think we need to stop with all the racist stuff and the race being. Like me and my friend right here, we just met today, we was talking. You know, we got to stop with the racist stuff and this, that. We all Americans, man, and nobody paying David Duke no mind.
I think the reporter who submitted this was controlled opposition.
Yeah. She is speechless.
She's like, well, clearly they're not all black people that like Trump. I mean,
yeah, there's not very many African Americans, she said, who like Donald Trump. However, interestingly enough, this afternoon, Louis Farrakhan came out and said kind words about Donald Trump. He said, anybody that is going to tell the Jewish lobby, I don't want your money, he goes, that's an independent guy. So here we got a situation. They're there trying to build this up. And as Ron Paul said earlier today, he said, why has Trump's reaction or non-reaction to a David Duke endorsement, why has that become the top of the news cycle? The only thing that anybody wants to talk about. Still kept alive today by Paul Ryan. Thank you, Paul Ryan, for showing us again how out of touch and manipulative the GOP establishment is. They could be talking about the military-industrial complex, as Ron Paul said, or about individual liberty, about the Patriot Act, or some of this stuff. Or they could be talking about the trade treaties, the open borders, global taxation. But no. They want to talk about David Duke endorsing Donald Trump because it's a dirty trick. But let's ask them this. Why is it that David Duke and Louis Farrakhan, two polar opposites on the racial situation here, why are they both supporting Donald Trump?
Right.
There was an interesting thing, Leanne, that came out. It's up on the Drudge Report about a Muslim lady who went in a hijab to one of the Trump rallies, and everybody gathers around her, and they start interviewing her. So, what are you doing here? She goes, well, I don't like what he had to say about Muslims, but let me tell you, I graduated 6 years ago with a college degree, and I haven't been able to get a job. And I think that Donald Trump can fix the economy. We need to bring the economy. It's the same thing that JFK said. A rising tide lifts all boats. And even though she disagreed with him on the Muslim immigration issue, being a Muslim immigrant, she said, I want more economic opportunity. I think that, along with the people being tired of this political correctness that we saw from Chelsea Clinton and tired of the manipulation, that is why people across the spectrum, from Louis Farrakhan to David Duke, are saying, yeah, let's give Donald Trump a try. I want somebody that's not owned by Wall Street, by the GOP establishment.
Right. And we're seeing so much of that media bias here with this. And it's just blatant in your face. There was a report that said black protesters or black people kicked out of another Trump rally. And that was like the big headline. But then when you actually click on it, it's Black Lives Matter protesters who were there to stir things up. And it was the Secret Service or the local police there that asked them to please leave because they knew they were there to stir up trouble.
And of course, that's part of the dirty tricks that people play. You have many in the mainstream media where some reported it accurately that that was a Secret Service, but hours and hours after that had happened, you still had a lot in the mainstream media who were coming out there and saying it was Trump's security detail, like the New York Daily News, a prime example of slanted, dishonest reporting. And we're going to talk about the real losers tonight, and that is the mainstream media and the establishment when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And I want to say, put on these glasses or start chewing concrete.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Time to take a stand, boys.
I'm Alex Jones, and like Rowdy Piper, I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick globalist butt. It's time for all of you, the info warriors, and myself included, to take our fight to the next level and to help the public put the sunglasses on. The metaphor for expanding your awareness, researching what's happening, and admitting that there's a global elite establishing a planetary tyranny. And I was just thinking about it today. It's leap year coming up on Monday. That only happens every 4 years at the end of February. And this is the best time ever to promote liberty and freedom everywhere. We got Super Tuesday coming up next week. And it's important for Americans to be involved in their political process, but not just in their political process, in every action you take with what you talk about and the products you buy and what you promote. You affect change in the world. We don't just vote at the ballot box. We vote with our dollars. We vote with our feet. We vote with our actions. And that's why for leap year, running from this Friday evening right through Monday evening, we're running the biggest sale in the history of 20 plus years of InfoWars and NoWorldOrder.com. The leap year special only comes around every 4 years. 30% off all products at InfoWarsStore.com and free shipping on top of the discounts that are already there. This is a major loss leader with some of the products, but overall it will help us fund the InfoWars operation and get our reporters out there across the world covering what's happening. The planet is ready to wake up. People are ready for the truth. But to do that, those of you already awake have to redouble your efforts spreading the word and directing people to good sources of pro-human information like InfoWars.com, my syndicated radio show, the nightly news, and more. I'll be back this Sunday live, 4 to 6 p.m. with the Sunday radio show as well. But in the meantime, take the time out to visit InfoWarsStore.com or InfoWarsLife.com to find the specific nutraceuticals and take advantage of the biggest specials yet on true game-changing products that are simply amazing. Like Survival Shield Nation Iodine X2. Most people are iodine deficient, and most iodine out there is bound to other compounds, so you don't really absorb it. Our research shows this is the purest, strongest, most focused, good halogen ever. And what it does is simply amazing. Read the 5-star reviews at InfoWarsLife.com today and take advantage of the biggest sale ever in InfoWars history. And on top of that, I finally want to thank all of you that have spread the word about the broadcast and that have supported us and our sponsors and bought the products at InfoWarsStore.com. Because without you, none of this would have been possible. My pledge to you is that I will keep the sunglasses on, and this operation will be a sunglass factory in the metaphor or the allegory of They Live, and that we will help humanity take the blinders off, come out of the cave, and defeat this globalist system that's being constructed. Now back to InfoWars Nightly News and more. I'm Alex Jones.
Take a stand, boys. You know what? You got a little courage. Stand up for yourself.
Waging war on corruption. It's Alex Jones coming to you live from the front lines of the InfoWar.
The Oscar winners give a press conference and how to buy a sailboat as...
Long live the Republic! Death to the New World! And it's time for humanity to stand up in the info war and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one!
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Welcome back to the InfoWars News live coverage of Super Tuesday. I'm David Knight with Leanne McAdoo. Of course, we're going to have the entire InfoWars crew joining us later tonight. We're also going to be taking your calls. In just a moment, we're going to go to Wayne Madsen. We're going to talk about the real Marco Rubio. Does anybody really know who this guy is? He's changed radically just within the last week in terms of the way he's behaved. But, of course, he changed his policies very radically once he got elected. He was a Tea Party darling, and then he betrayed the Tea Party severely with the Gang of Eight amnesty bill. Before we go to Wayne, I just want to let you know that we have extended the leap year sale. We now have that running until at least midnight tonight. It may run until the end of the show tomorrow. That's 30% off everything at the InfoWars store at InfoWars Life and InfoWarsStore.com, including select storable foods. And, of course, you can get free shipping if you buy $50 or more. That's a huge savings when you look at the heavier items like the storable foods. But, again, everything at the store that is still in stock is 30% off plus free shipping for orders of $50 or more. We've extended that until midnight tonight at least, perhaps until the end of the show tomorrow. Let's go now to Wayne Madsen. Thank you for joining us, Wayne.
Hi, good to be with you.
I guess the question that everybody is asking is, who is Marco Rubio? And, of course, you've got one kind of answer for us. We've seen that Marco Rubio changed radically after he was elected with this Gang of Eight. We saw a lot of revelations about that this weekend. The New York Times talking about how Marco Rubio was the point man. And, of course, this is something that's been known for a while. But they did a very detailed expose about how he went to Fox News, talked to Rupert Murdoch, Roger Ailes as essentially an ambassador to get Fox News to go along with him on the amnesty bill, talking to a lot of conservative talk radio hosts. Many of them are pushing back on that narrative. Nevertheless, it almost passed, and it truly is amazing that it didn't pass. It kind of a miracle that it didn't pass, considering how Fox News was sympathetic to it. So many conservative talk show hosts were sympathetic to it. Of course, we opposed it. The grassroots opposed it, and Marco Rubio has really become an anathema to anybody who was really paying attention to it. But tell us about your opinion of Marco Rubio.
Well, he's a neocon. I've been watching the Virginia returns this evening, and I know that the networks are not going to be calling. They're not calling Virginia for Trump, but if you look at the returns from Virginia, you see that the only counties where Marco Rubio is winning are the counties in the Northern Virginia and in the D.C. suburbs. Look, Rubio's a neocon. The people who are voting for him in Northern Virginia are neocon Republicans. They either work for the federal government and they live in Northern Virginia, in Arlington County, Alexandria, Falls Church, Fairfax County, Loudoun County. This is the Rubio territory this evening. I would note, and Fairfax County, this is where many of these neocon think tanks have their offices. So the people not only live there, they work there. We also know that the log cabin Republicans, the gay Republicans, have been working overtime to help their comrade in arms, so to speak, Marco, in this election. And again, in the Northern Virginia Republican Party is heavy with log cabin Republicans. They're either out of the closet or they're still in the closet. I know enough about Northern Virginia politics. I won't claim expertise in the rest of the state because that's, you got the Tidewater area. I notice Trump is doing very well with the military vote in Norfolk and Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. He's doing very well with the old coal mining towns where the jobs have been largely lost in Southwest Virginia. He's outside of Northern Virginia. The only place where Rubio is doing well is college towns like Radford, where there was apparently an altercation with some protesters. Harrisonburg, which is James Madison University. But you look at the students there who are in the young Republicans, college Republicans. Again, they're neocons. Their parents live up in Northern Virginia who are, either retired military working for the neocons or they're neocons working for the federal government.
So what you're saying, Wayne, is that this is really, maybe even more so than Florida, this is really Marco Rubio's home state, because this is really where the GOP establishment is here. Right. The suburbs that are part of Northern Virginia, outside of D.C.
It's his home territory. Yeah. And look, I think Trump's going to win Virginia. I don't think they had the turnout except maybe in Loudoun County. Of course, that's where a lot of the CIA guys live out there. Mm-hmm. They're going to be for Rubio because Rubio's campaign slogan is what? We need a new American century. Where have I heard that rhetoric?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's right out of the neocon playbook. So
that's right.
Yeah, he's doing well in the counties that can profit from his future neocon wars. And I'm not surprised, but I don't think they're getting a turnout. I think the rest of Virginia is going to offset the vote for Rubio, and I think Virginia will have to eventually, the MSNBC, which is so in the tank for Rubio this evening, is going to have to call that state for Trump. And the rest of it, you look at the sea of red, the counties that Trump is winning, and it goes from Virginia all the way down through Georgia over to Alabama. And now it looks like Trump's way ahead in Oklahoma. And I think the state to watch is going to be Texas. Yeah. Because if Cruz loses there, they're going to say, look, it's over. It's over, buddy. You got to get out.
Well, you know what I've been looking at on the returns from Virginia, I've seen these numbers essentially staying still, although the percentages of precincts reporting has gone up. When I first started looking at this, Wayne, it was only 11%, and the percentage breakdown between the top three candidates was essentially the same. It was 39% for Trump, 30% for Rubio, and 18% for Cruz. Now what it is with 64% reporting is 37% for Trump, 30% for Rubio, and 17% for Cruz. So it really hasn't changed as we've been watching this throughout the night. And yet here we are with 64% of them reporting, and they still don't want to call it for Trump. Pretty interesting.
Well, that's it. And again, I've been looking at those Virginia returns, and if they, first of all, Northern Virginia, they're not going to get a heavy turnout because this is Democratic Party territory. These are the counties that went for Obama in both elections, 08 and 12, and so that they used to have a saying in Arlington County that the Arlington County Republican a party could have a meeting in somebody's house. Actually, was at one of those meetings one time, and it wasn't somebody's house. I mean, no Republican is going to win up there in those. So there's not the turnout, there's not the numbers, and I wish these networks would understand that they got to see the tea leaves, read the tea leaves right, because there is no way that Rubio can win Virginia. I'm looking at these, unless there's a situation, and I ran across this return. Every one of these primaries, I find an anomaly with the returns.
Yeah.
Although the Trump won Georgia, I'm looking at the returns from Elbert County, which is up in the northeast corner of Georgia. And they're reporting with, now granted, one of 11 precincts reporting in, Rubio at 40.9%, Cruz at 35.9%, Kasich at 10.4%, and Carson at 7.7%. Now, the rest of the counties around there are all going for Trump. Where is Trump in these returns? He's nowhere to be found.
They don't even list him.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
And yet, across Georgia, it's like 51% for Trump, and yet he doesn't even show up in that county.
Listed. So, I'd be looking at that one for a recount, because that smells of some chicanery. I saw the same thing happen in New Hampshire in their primary, and you see these kind of bellwether situations that indicates there's probably fraud going on with the voting machines.
Very interesting. And of course, I wonder if that's what's going on in Virginia. They don't want to call it because they think maybe they can stuff a few more ballots. Thank you so much, Wayne Madsen. We'll be right back with more news about Super Tuesday. Stay with us.
And I want to say, put on these glasses or start chewing concrete.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Time to take a stand, boys.
I'm Alex Jones, and like Rowdy Piper, I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick globalist butt. It's time for all of you, the info warriors, and myself included, to take our fight to the next level and to help the public put the sunglasses on. The metaphor for expanding your awareness, researching what's happening, and admitting that there's a global elite establishing a planetary tyranny. And I was just thinking about it today. It's leap year coming up on Monday. That only happens every 4 years at the end of February. And this is the best time ever to promote liberty and freedom everywhere. We got Super Tuesday coming up next week. And it's important for Americans to be involved in their political process, but not just in their political process, in every action you take, with what you talk about and the products you buy and what you promote. You affect change in the world. We don't just vote at the ballot box. We vote with our dollars. We vote with our feet. We vote with our actions. And that's why, for leap year, running from this Friday evening right through Monday evening, we're running the biggest sale in the history of 20-plus years of InfoWars and NoWorldOrder.com. The leap year special only comes around every 4 years. 30% off all products at InfoWarsStore.com and free shipping on top of the discounts that are already there. This is a major loss leader with some of the products, but overall it will help us fund the InfoWars operation and get our reporters out there across the world covering what's happening. The planet is ready to wake up. People are ready for the truth. But to do that, those of you already awake have to redouble your efforts spreading the word and directing people to good sources of pro-human information like NoWorldOrder.com, my syndicated radio show, the nightly news, and more. I'll be back this Sunday live, 4 to 6 p.m. with the Sunday radio show as well. But in the meantime, take the time out to visit InfoWarsStore.com or InfoWarsLife.com to find the specific nutraceuticals and take advantage of the biggest specials yet on true game-changing products that are simply amazing. Like Survival Shield Nation Iodine X2. Most people are iodine deficient, and most iodine out there is bound to other compounds, so you don't really absorb it. Our research shows this is the purest, strongest, most focused, good halogen ever. And what it does is simply amazing. Read the 5-star reviews at InfoWarsLife.com today and take advantage of the biggest sale ever in InfoWars history. And on top of that, I finally want to thank all of you that have spread the word about the broadcast and that have supported us and our sponsors and bought the products at InfoWarsStore.com. Because without you, none of this would have been possible. My pledge to you is that I will keep the sunglasses on, and this operation will be a sunglass factory in the metaphor or the allegory of They Live, and that we will help humanity take the blinders off, come out of the cave, and defeat this globalist system that's being constructed. Now back to InfoWars Nightly News and more. I'm Alex Jones.
Take a stand, boys. You know what? You got a little courage. Stand up for yourself.
Waging war on corruption. It's Alex Jones coming to you live from the front lines of the InfoWar.
The Oscar winners give a press conference and how to buy a sailboat as...
Long live the Republic! Death to the New World!
Welcome back to the InfoWars Nightly News, live coverage of Super Tuesday. I'm David Knight with Leanne McAdoo. We've got Wayne Madsen on the line. We're going to go back to him in just a moment. Today, we had a story that was up on the Drudge Report about voting anomalies in Austin. Tell us about that, Leanne. I want to get Wayne's comments on that.
Yeah, well, this was coming in first thing this morning. Dozens of people were calling into a local radio station here in Austin, Texas, KLBJ. They were reporting ballot irregularities. They said dozens of people were calling in saying computer freeze-ups, glitches. They saw that they voted for Trump, but then it switched it to Marco Rubio.
That's the key thing.
Right.
And that's the key thing. And Wayne, I want to get your comments on this because as we looked at the last poll that came out in Texas, it showed Cruz winning. It showed Donald Trump in second place. It showed Marco Rubio at 19%. And, of course, to get any of the delegates allotted to him proportionally on a statewide basis, he has to get to at least 20%. As a bronze winner, Rubio isn't going to get anything from the 2/3 of delegates that are going to be allocated on a congressional district basis. Okay, the winner of each congressional district will get 2 delegates. Second place will get 1 delegate. Third place gets, as I said before, a box of steak knives or something. But on a statewide basis, there's still about 1/3 of the delegates that are available if you get above 20%. I'm looking at the 1% that have come in here right now. It's hovering just around 20%. He was at 20.1%. Now he's at 19.8%. I think that's very significant. It might explain why we saw these ballots in Travis County switching Trump votes to Rubio. What do you think?
Right.
Yeah, these electronic voting machines have plagued this country for now several election cycles. Got to get rid of them. I mean, look, most of the companies that make these are tied in with the establishment Republican Party. We saw, we saw how this was manipulated by Karl Rove in the 2004 election in Ohio, in Florida, in 2000. Look, this is called election engineering. They not only do it in this country, they've done it overseas. They did it in one of the Mexican presidential elections. They did it in one of the French presidential elections. They got to get rid of these darn machines. I mean, don't do like, in this country, some states went to paper ballots that are optical scan, a little bit better. Not that the tabulators can't be messed with. They can, and they probably have been, but a lot more accurate than these machines. But, you know, when these states got rid of them, they packed them up and sold them to other countries. You got to put these in the deepest part of the ocean and never make them anymore because these things are rigged.
Yeah, we've talked to Bev Harris before, and she's a big advocate of just doing it very simply with paper ballots, watching very carefully the custody of those paper ballots, having people watching that, keeping that under lock and key. I mean, just keep it simple. Right. You know, put dye on people's thumbs and make them all vote on a single day. Everything that they have done to streamline the elections, to have early voting, to have motor voter voting, everything that is done that way is an open invitation to voter fraud.
Right. Not to mention the fact that they leave these things open. They could be easily hacked into. We've done reports in the past where one person will have the passcode, but then they leave the machine open the entire time. So anyone there at the polling station can go switch something around in there. So it's just not safe.
Well, people have demonstrated they could go in and install some software that would basically alter votes and then delete itself as well. Go ahead, Wayne.
And they could even dial in, and you know, why should I get in my car and go out to a place where they're having problems? I'll just go in over the internet.
Exactly.
That's just astounding. But the situation with these machines, of course, lends itself to this type of what we saw in that one county in Georgia, for example. That just doesn't look right. I saw similar things, as I mentioned, in New Hampshire. And, you know, this country, of course, can do it better. Canada votes by paper ballot. And, you know, there's never many problems up in Canada. And it's a time zone situation like the U.S. is.
Well, thank you so much, Wayne. We're going to go to a special report by Jakari Jackson talking to people here in Austin. Thank you so much for joining us, Wayne. We're talking about the fraud and the manipulations that we've seen in Ohio and the famous one in Florida. In the next segment, we're going to be talking to Roger Stone, who was involved in that recount in Florida. But let's first go to this report from Jakari Jackson, a man on the street here in Austin.
Jakari Jackson for NoWorldOrder.com. It's lunchtime, and people are taking advantage of the opportunity to cast their ballots for the presidential nominees. So we're going to ask people who their favorite presidential candidates are, and also if they've heard about the suspected voter fraud here in Austin, Texas. We're asking people who their favorite presidential candidate is. Any thoughts?
I keep it to myself.
Keep it to yourself. Sir, favorite presidential candidate?
Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Yes, sir.
What do you like about Ted Cruz?
Everything. He's a constitutionalist. He'll do what he says.
All right, sir. Have you heard about the reports? People are calling into KLBJ, the local radio station, and they're saying that they have some ballot switching. They put down one name, when they get the ballot back, it has another.
I've heard that.
Does that concern you at all?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're talking about at the polling places, ballots getting switched?
Yes, sir.
Electronically?
Yes, sir.
You know, I don't doubt it. That bothers me.
Like Mrs. Clinton, what's your favorite policy from Mrs. Clinton?
I just think she has the most experience of all the people who are running. And I think she's worked hard for children, for schools, and I think our nation is failing in terms of its education for everyone.
You have reports of ballot switching. People are calling into KLBJ saying that they have their ballot switched. Does that concern you at all, miss?
It angers me that it's even possible, and it worries me that people think it's possible. Sometimes rumors have a basis for belief, and so, yeah, that's troubling.
I hope whoever can get in to stop that stops that. We do not need fraud anywhere, anytime. And I appreciate, you know, whoever is out there fighting to keep the process honest.
What do you guys like in the next presidential election?
I like John Kasich.
John Kasich?
Yep.
Okay.
He's from my hometown, and he's also very practical. So he's not, you know, doesn't throw a lot of frills out there, and I think he's no nonsense.
Well, Carson.
Ben Carson. Okay, so why do you like Ben Carson?
Because he's got the Christian perspective, but I know he's not going to win So my next favorite is Rubio because I think he really knows what's going on.
Next president, Bernie Sanders.
Bernie, so you feeling the burn?
I'm feeling it.
Okay, so
I hope we have that much of a possibility in the United States to turn back all the crap. Can I say that?
you say whatever you want.
That's been going on, and have somebody who's really committed to change. I mean, I don't know if a president can do anything anyway, but if he can or she can, and I would love there to be a woman, but I gotta respect her, and I don't respect Miss Clinton.
Can I ask you who your favorite presidential candidates are?
Hillary Clinton.
You like Hillary, sir?
Yes.
Quite honestly, I love both of them for different reasons. I think they'll both be fantastic, whichever one wins.
Bernie or Hillary?
Bernie or Hillary.
Feeling the burn, okay.
Donald J. Trump.
Well, I'll tell you, sir, I don't know if you heard the reports. People are calling in to KLBJ. They're saying that their ballots have been switched. They wrote down Trump. When they got it back, it had Rubio on it.
Same thing happened to me several years back. I voted all Republican, and at the end of the machine, it said I voted Democrat.
Oh, yeah.
And they turned the machine back, and sure enough, I voted Republican. And they said, well, we're having trouble with these machines. Matter of fact, it was right here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Is there any kind of remedy for that you know of?
It's just everything's out of control. It's all deceitful. Everything's deceitful.
Tell you what, Donald Trump, I'm not building a fence.
Tell him that the wall just got 10 feet taller. Okay, tell him.
And that was Jakari Jackson's Man on the Street here in Austin. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Roger Stone. This is the guy who knows how they are going to come after the game, how they're going to try to rig the process. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Brain Force is here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
One of the worst things with most energy products is it's not sustainable, right? You're going to crash and going to feel really bad afterwards. This has a bunch of different antioxidants and compounds and polyphenols.
Everybody's on these drugs to knock their brain out because the brain's so fried.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. For example, the L-theanine inside of it, that is activated by the different compounds in the yerba mate that we put inside of it as well. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a car will run on one form of junkie gas, but it runs really good on what it's designed for. You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139. Introducing Secret 12, the new InfoWars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and could not be properly absorbed by the body. That's why for real results, so many are having to turn to painful B12 injections, which are known to have higher absorption rates. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
And it's time for humanity to stand up in the info war and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
give me a countdown. Welcome back to the InfoWars Nightly News, live coverage of Super Tuesday. I'm David Knight with Leanne McAdoo. We're going to be going to Roger Stone, a seasoned political consultant, somebody who knows Donald Trump very well, StoneZone.com. I want to get his comments on how he sees the evening shaping up tonight, as well as the battle ahead for delegates, because that's really what we need to be paying attention to. Joining us now is Roger Stone. Welcome, Roger.
Great to be here.
Thank you. What do you think so far of what we're seeing? We still haven't seen Virginia being called for Donald Trump with 80% of the votes, and I haven't seen the percentages really fluctuate on here. It stayed about 36, 37% all night, with Marco Rubio at 30, 31%, Ted Cruz at 17 or 18%. It's still about there, but they're not calling it for Donald Trump. Your comments on that? Why do you think they're waiting so long?
If you analyze this, let's take Virginia, the northern Virginia, the Washington suburbs, if you will, are, of course, the home of the liberal Republicans and the establishment Republicans. The Henrico, Chesterfield area in the second ring outside of Richmond is kind of Reagan country, very conservative. Of course, the rest of the state, other than Newport News and the Norfolk area, which is generally heavily Democratic, but also heavily military induced. What we're seeing tonight is the same trend over and over. In the Ted Cruz.
Okay, we're getting a little bit of break up there.
To do well. It's Donald Trump who's romping, and Marco Rubio is getting the votes of the type.
Okay, I think we're getting a little bit of break up there from Roger Stone. Let's see if we can get that connection a little bit better again. As he was pointing out, same thing that Wayne Madsen was saying, in the sense that this is really kind of Marco Rubio's home turf here, because we're looking at the suburbs of Washington, D.C., Rubio, the darling of the establishment. Perhaps that's why they haven't called it yet. Perhaps they're waiting for those votes to come in. I've seen it tighten just a little bit. It started out with Donald Trump at 39% and Marco Rubio at 30%. Now Rubio is at 31 and Trump is at 36. So he still has about a 5-point lead there, but it is starting to narrow down in that race. We'll also see that in Vermont, they still have not called that. It's only about 24% of Republicans who have voted there. They've called it for Sanders. He's massively ahead in his home state of Vermont, 87.5% for Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton at 12%. And we had 33 diehards for O'Malley, that because he was still on the ballot there. But anyway, overwhelming for Bernie Sanders in his home state of Vermont. For the Republicans, with only about 24% of them coming in, Trump is still holding on to his lead, about 35% to 28%. But let's go back to Roger Stone. We've got him back on the line now. Roger, finish what you were saying about Virginia. Go ahead.
Well, as you can see, the NSA has been handling my communications here for a long time. Look, what you see is this classic pattern, but there are some interesting things. Arkansas, closer than expected tonight. Donald Trump narrowly out front. Virginia appears to be competitive. Oklahoma appears to be a dogfight because Ted Cruz, to a certain extent, is draining Donald Trump, but Trump's still ahead. Now, interestingly, these are three of the states where we got complaints about irregularities. We got a lot of complaints today about people attempting to cast their vote for Trump. In some cases, the lever wouldn't move. In other cases, the vote would be registered for Rubio. We have hastily organized some lawyers and activists with some experience, some election judges to go look at these situations. We also had complaints from a number of Trump supporters in Ohio pertaining to their absentee ballot collection and their early voting efforts. So, look, the establishment is not above stealing this from Donald Trump. I have always been one who thought the computerized voting needs to be watched very carefully. I think there's a lot of evidence that Karl Rove was so confident about Ohio because he had wired the machines there against John Kerry. This is why I think he was indignant, insisting that that Romney had carried Ohio, when in fact it went to Barack Obama. Carl paid, he just didn't pay last, I think.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And of course, as you pointed out, it is neck and neck in Arkansas and in Oklahoma. We have Donald Trump at 31%, 31.4% in Arkansas, with Rubio at 30.8%. And then in Oklahoma, it's Trump at 31.2% and Cruz at 32%. So it is razor thin in those two states.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think Ted Cruz has to win something beyond Texas tonight in order to be able to plausibly move forward. I also think, in all honesty, the amazing thing about the Trump campaign is he continues to perform at this level. I guarantee you he was outspent in every one of these states. The Rubio and Cruz campaigns together spent $40 million on negative TV ads in South Carolina. They continue to spend at that rate. The dirty tricks are rife. Ted Cruz is accusing Donald Trump of being in bed with the mafia, which is laughable since he has held a New Jersey casino control operator's license, the toughest regulatory scheme in the country. You have to be squeaky clean to get a license. The whole smear of David Duke. Donald Trump disavows David Duke. Let his Twitter feed. And by the way, he already disavowed him back in August, the first time that this cretin popped his head up.
Yeah.
So this is just a smear by the mainstream media.
Absolutely a smear campaign. We saw Ron Paul come out and say, why is this the #1 story all day? We had Mike Huckabee say, do you really believe that Donald Trump is racist? And of course, as part of that, Roger, when Mike Huckabee was talking to Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe, they had a back and forth, and Mike Huckabee went to the source of the issue. He knows this is something that is coming from the establishment. He said, here's the real issue. Will the GOP establishment turn this away from the voters and do whatever they want, rig this election, because that is what's really going to be destructive. So veterans like Huckabee, people like Ron Paul know that this is a red herring that's being drawn across all of this. And they understand that the real fundamental issue here is that the GOP establishment is trying to rig this. Talk to us about the delegate situation coming forward. What do you think is going to be their next play in terms of trying to push for a brokered convention?
Well, first of all, it's very early this evening, and I really am very concerned about this notion of stolen votes, voting irregularities, machines that are wired that when you vote for Donald Trump, it registers your votes for Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
And I want to see at the end of the evening whether these had an effect in the states that didn't turn out as we thought they would, or that turned out to be much closer than we expected. That said, I think the plan B for the establishment centers around trying to keep Donald Trump just short of a majority on the first ballot so he could go to Cleveland, having run the table by and large in the primaries, although a couple looked close tonight, but move forward with enough delegates, but be short of victory on the first ballot. Then you see, in a number of states, the delegates are bound by law on the first ballot, but the actual delegates themselves were selected by the Republican power structure, and they are almost universally hostile to Trump. So the New York delegation will have almost no Trump people in it. Although in some of the upstate districts, Carl Palladino, who is the Trump state chairman there, is fighting to get good people, solid people inserted. So that's a perfect example. If you could stall Trump on the first ballot, I'm also convinced that if Marco Rubio cannot win Florida, then the Kochs, Norman Brayman, Paul Singer, the billionaires that control him, Wayne Berman, they will give him the hook.
Stay with us. We're talking to Roger Stone. We've got to go to a commercial break. Roger Stone, StoneZone.com. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk about what the GOP is going to do to try to pull this away from the popular vote for Donald Trump. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. InfoWarsLife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams a piece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult, and it just synergistically puts everything in there. InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com, or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.
Welcome back to the InfoWars Nightly News, live coverage of Super Tuesday. I'm David Knight with Leanne McAdoo, and we're joined by Roger Stone of StoneZone.com. And, of course, we're asking him how he believes the establishment is going to play this out. There's been a lot of rumors, Leanne, about Mitt Romney possibly entering the race. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's very interesting that he's been quiet for months, and then all of a sudden now he's the one that's putting out these nasty tweets saying, oh, something bombshell's coming, something bombshell could knock him out of the race. And I see that this is something that Roger Stone is you're speaking about, that Mitt Romney is kind of waiting in the wings, and perhaps this is something the establishment is planning to keep Trump out of the White House, is to have Mitt Romney come along. How would that work? He hasn't gone through the debates. He hasn't gone through this delegate process. How could something like that work, especially in the eyes of the American people?
Yeah, how would that work, Roger?
Well, first of all, it's not too late for Mitt Romney to file in the California primary, the New Jersey primary, the Michigan primary, a number of other late states. Half the delegates have not yet been selected. Tonight, we got to a little more than a third of the delegates. So theoretically, it is possible. Also recognize Mitt Romney has a structure in place in every state. He ran for president 3 years ago. Most of those people are still intact. The ones that weren't went for Jeb, so they're available. He also has instantaneous access to money, as much corporate money, as much as establishment money, as much old school money as you need. And all he has to do is to keep some delegates away from Trump. He doesn't even have to sweep the field. The idea, again, is to have Trump arrive in Cleveland with a large but not a majority of the delegates. You also have these super delegates, 150 of them. Now,
and of course,
changed the rules so they're bound on the first ballot, but they're not bound on the second ballot.
And we're looking at, when we talk about 150 delegates, put that in perspective, Texas has 155 delegates. So that's a number of delegates that the establishment, that the inner core or the RNC has reserved for themselves. And that is a huge number. Only Texas has more, with just slightly more, 155, and California has 172. But the RNC reserves for itself 150 delegates.
Yeah, and they are essentially insiders. You know, they're hacks. They're Republican National Committee men and committee women. The average age is deceased. And there's no Trump support within that group, I assure you.
Yeah, absolutely. They have called Texas for Cruz now. I've just been told. Rob came in and said that they've got Cruz at 39% at the moment, with only 1.6% of the votes reported. But they've called it, it's currently 39% for Cruz, Trump at 28%, and Rubio at 19.5%. So that's the key. If Rubio doesn't get above 20%, he's not going to get a single delegate out of the state of Texas. But, of course, Cruz desperately needed to carry Texas, and it looks like he's going to do that. Right now he's got an 11-point lead, and they've called it for him.
You know, I'm going to temporarily call fraud. We don't have more. There is no state where we have more complaints about irregularities today in Dallas County, in Travis County, and we need to get to the bottom of this. It is very clear, based on a report I got from an attorney on the ground only minutes ago, that the Dallas County Electoral Board is acting illegally in a number of instances, and that there are problems with the count there. So I don't know if this is another one of Tricky Ted's tricks. It's like last time when he convinced people that Ted Cruz was getting out of the race, got CNN to go with that bogus story, then immediately, being a very well-organized operation, contacted by email and telephone Ben Carson supporters to tell them that, to Carson supporters to tell them that Ben was out.
And of course, when he tried to push that back, he said, well, you know, we corrected it when we found out. That was an absolute lie, because if you go back and you look at the time that the tweets went out from the CNN reporter, he had 3 tweets that went out within 2 minutes of each other, and he says, well, it's kind of unusual that Ben Carson is going back to Florida, but he's made it clear that he's not dropping out of the race. They waited another 20 minutes until the caucuses started, and then they dropped this bombshell, started spreading this rumor that Ben Carson had dropped out, and continued to do that for another half hour, even though CNN had made it clear, both with the tweets, both with their anchors, before that ever went out, and then continued to make that clear. They kept that rumor going for another half hour. That has really bounced back and really hurt Ted Cruz, because there's this guy who's promoting himself as this Christian, as evangelical, as somebody who has character, and yet he gets in there with the dirtiest traditional political tricks that you can imagine. Of course, his campaign manager is known for that.
One of the most interesting things in the debate is when Ted Cruz gives this entirely Nixonian explanation. I, of course, knew nothing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he's the slippery trial lawyer, but then Ben Carson, in his final word, says, look at the timeline, he's lying.
Yeah.
One of the most effective things I've ever seen, the heart surgeon destroyed the trial lawyer, you know, in court, the way I look at that.
That's right. Yeah, he opened up his chest and showed they didn't have a heart, is basically what he did. But, you know, when we look at this...
I think Cruz has very little credibility left. This collection of dirty tricks, the phone calls in South Carolina saying Donald Trump is for the gay and lesbian agenda, his insistence that Donald Trump is pro-abortion. Look, Donald Trump was once pro-choice. He admits that. But when he and his wife Melania, very good personal friends of mine, had their youngest child, Barron, it changed their outlook entirely. That baby is precious to them. That boy is precious to them. Now, they don't like to talk about it. They're not people who wear their religion on their sleeve. But doomed is the movement that doesn't accept converts.
Well, you know, Ronald Reagan was that way. Ronald Reagan had been pro-abortion as a governor in California. And those same charges were made of Ronald Reagan when he ran.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Look, Ted Cruz is a Bush Republican. He's George W. Bush's chief issue advisor for 2 years. He's the man who recruited John Roberts to the Bush legal team and who pushed him for the Supreme Court. His wife worked as a deputy to Condoleezza Rice in the phony Iraq War, and then she worked as a deputy to the U.S. Trade Representative's office under Bob Zellick, a man who doesn't have any ideology at all. He's there under Clinton, Carter, Bush. You know, a permanent member of the establishment. And what does she handle? China policy. That China trade policy that Donald Trump talks so much about. So
and of course, she was also when she was also at the CFR under Robert Zellick. She was also part of a commission that looked at the North American Union and suggested that we have a combined border that runs around the perimeter of Canada, the United States, and Mexico, patrolled by Homeland Security. And so that's the kind of people that you see coming out of. And that has always been my concern about Ted Cruz, is everything about him seems to be phony. And of course, today, as you point out, you're calling fraud here in Texas. It started out today with people calling in to local talk radio here in Austin. And of course, you point out there's other issues all over Texas. But here in Austin, we had multiple callers calling in to KLBJ, the local talk radio show station, and talking about how they saw their votes being flipped from Trump to Rubio. And so we made an article out of that, got pulled up on the Drudge Report. Yeah, let's run a clip of that real quickly. Go ahead. Let's play that clip real quick.
I just voted, and in reviewing my ballot, I'll just tell you I voted for Trump, and when I reviewed it, it had Rubio marked.
What? Huh?
And they're nowhere close to the same area.
Now, where did this happen? Which polling place?
I don't really want to say that because I don't think it's the polling place. I think it's the machine.
Well, it would be at the machine at that polling place.
Well, yeah, people would need to be aware.
I mean, that's something that needs to be investigated. I mean, you got to tell us where, man. We got to get to the bottom of this.
My mother, she's 85. She did early voting last week, and she went in there and she pushed the button for Trump. And when she checked it before she left, it went to Rubio.
Wow, you're the second person that said that. You're the second person that's called.
Wow. And of course, we've seen this in elections past as well. So
yeah, there you go. So that's the kind of thing we saw today. We did a report on that. We had some interviews with the talk show hosts that were doing that. But that's precisely what you were talking about, Roger Stone, saying that there were events that were happening in Dallas. And what were the specifics that you heard about in Dallas as well?
Well, I should point out, I'm working with the Trump Ballot Security Project, which is a project of the Committee to Restore America's Greatness. We have set up an 800 number, which will be operational here momentarily, for people to report irregularities and so on. We have gone to KLBJ and gotten that information. We're in touch now with literally hundreds of people from across the country who have complained about various aspects in the process. We have put together a team. We've sent a team to Ohio where we have a lot of complaints about something going on with the absentee ballots. The Ohio Republican Party is functioning like a super PAC for John Kasich, and they're stuffing those ballot boxes, in my opinion, with absentees.
Yeah.
And that needs to be examined. So if people want to help, because we do need lawyers, we do need transportation, we may need to go into court here in some instances. You can go to stopthesteal.org to help us. This is not the Trump campaign. This is a group of veteran Republican political operatives and a mathematician that we brought in who's an expert on machine fraud. Richard Charnin is helping us. He's an expert on voting machine fraud. He is the man who examined the Wisconsin results and determined that Scott Walker had stolen his election in the machines. He also ascertains that most likely happened in Ohio under George Bush in his race against John Kerry. So
again, that's stopthesteal.org. That's where people, is that operational right now? Yeah, okay, good.
Yes, indeed. They can go right there and they can help us. We also have to mount a convention operation. Look, we don't know.
Oh, we're having some problems with Skype again. Again, that's stopthesteal.org. And as Roger Stone was saying, that's I think we got him back now. It looks like it was frozen there. Go ahead. Go ahead, Roger. I think we got you back now.
Again, I think the Republican National Convention is problematic. There's no, Donald Trump has been totally focused on winning caucuses and primaries, and he's doing an amazing job. But there is no database of information on who the delegates are, Trump delegates and otherwise. That needs to be developed. There's going to be a rules fight because they're going to monkey with Rule 40B. Rule 40B was used to block Ron Paul from being nominated just 3 years ago by the Romney people. So they're going to try to adjust that rule to open the floor to nominees of people who don't have a requisite number of states, paving the way for a Romney or a Romney-Rick Perry ticket. At the highest level, my sources tell me that it will be the stop Trump ticket, Romney and Rick Perry.
Wow. We have to try to do something to stop that. Very, very important to stop that. Again, stopthesteal.org, because we don't want to see that happen. I think one of the most important things to come out of this, certainly when I look at Donald Trump and the reasons that I support him, because I don't agree with him on a lot of issues, on issues like civil liberties, on eminent domain, other things like that. But those issues, really, the rest of the Republicans are on the same side as Donald Trump on those issues. But when it comes to stopping these global trade treaties, when it comes to closing the border, when it comes to stopping the climate change treaty that's going to be a carbon tax, that is very key. And it's very key for us to hold these people accountable. They have rigged these elections. They have lied to us over and over again about what they're going to do, just like Marco Rubio did. The Gang of Eight is a perfect example. But the Republicans have done this on issue after issue with the voters. They have been betrayed. That's why people are angry. That's why they are supporting Donald Trump. And yet we see the Republicans who are not only playing the game, but are also acting as referees and changing the rules in the middle of the game. I think that's one of the key things we need to understand that they could do. If they want to go full nuclear, if they want to just set the board on fire, they can change the rules going into the convention. There's no limit on what they can do.
I also think it's really interesting how... It's really interesting, don't you think, Roger, how the media is so vocal for the candidates that they're supporting. I don't feel like we've seen such openness in elections past, who they're supporting or who they are openly against, in this case, Donald Trump.
Well, one thing Donald Trump cannot complain about is a lack of coverage, because he dominated this race. And that's really because he's interesting, because people can look at him and tell that he's genuine. He's not working for some polling or some focus group or some speech written by some 22-year-old kid. When Donald Trump speaks, he speaks from the heart, and he's a nationalist. He believes in American sovereignty. He believes in American power. but he's not an interventionist. He doesn't think we should go around the globe looking for trouble. He is coming around on the war on drugs, which has been a big, colossal, expensive failure. He wants to audit the Fed. Who knows bankers better than Donald Trump? He's been taking bankers cleaners his entire life. He knows that something shady is going on over there. I would like to see Ron Paul in a Donald Trump cabinet. Maybe Secretary of the Treasury, Ron Paul.
Oh, that would be great.
Well, I would like to see him audit not only the Fed, but audit the IRS. That's one of the things you see Ted Cruz bragging about, the fact that he wanted to get rid of the IRS. Of course, you know, that was very cheap for him to say that. He wasn't in any position to make that happen. But now he's holding up the idea of Donald Trump's tax returns and the idea that an audit signifies that there's something shady going on here, which, of course, was an idea that was floated by Mitt Romney. We're going to go to a quick break here, and then we're going to come back to Roger Stone, try to get a little bit better connection there on his Skype. We'll be right back. We're going to have more from Roger Stone. We're going to also talk to our reporters here, Jakari Jackson, Joe Biggs, and we're going to take some of your phone calls when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
For humanity to stand up in the info war and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Did you know that only 6 corporations control 90% of what millions of Americans see, hear, and read every single day? It's the illusion of choice. Think about it. The mainstream media is owned by only a handful of megacorporations with vested interests. But on the other hand, the internet is an interconnected network of billions of sources. So you can research information for yourself from multiple sources, or you can blindly accept what you hear or read in the mainstream media, never questioning what you are being told. This gives you a false sense of reality. I mean, do you actually know what you think you know? Or have you been programmed to accept someone else's version of events? Think about it. This is Darren McBreen, and I want you to break the matrix at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv and listen to The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on your mind.
Introducing Pro One. All of your filtration in one system, portable, on the go. No more do you have 2 or 3 filters to just reduce sodium fluoride. You have a system that cuts out the sodium fluoride and up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Advanced manufacturing technology combines silver-impregnated white ceramic with new Aquamedics advanced media for removal of fluoride and other heavy metals, all in one filter element. It is the only one that does it, and out of the gates, we have it discounted at 10% off with promo code WATER. This is the only system that in one unit helps reduce or remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, ammonia, and chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid, the most common form of fluoride not covered by other fluoride filter brands, and sodium hexafluorosilicate. Get your Pro Pure with the new Pro One filter today at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. Thousands of years ago, there was a basic form of chivalry. Our ancestors would hear the drums of war, giving the warriors of the tribe a chance to organize and prepare a defense. 60 years ago, when foreign air forces were approaching filled with bombs, they had drums of their own, air raid sirens. But in the 21st century, there are silent weapons for quiet war. Pathogens added to the food and water and to the lining of plastics that destroy our vitality. turn off our hormones, and accelerate our journey towards death. I personally counter this onslaught with Anthroplex. Anthroplex is designed with known organic concentrated herbs to create the basic foundation to normal metabolic activity inside the human body. Discover why Anthroplex is turning so many heads today. It's time for us to take our bodies back into our own hands, and it starts at InfoWarsLife.com with Anthroplex.
Welcome back to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight, and this is our live coverage of Super Tuesday. I'm here with Leanne McAdoo. We're going to go right back to Roger Stone of StoneZone.com. We're going to get his final comments. We've seen that they've now called Oklahoma for Ted Cruz as well as Texas. Trump is in second place in both of those areas. Interesting thing about Texas is that Marco Rubio is now at 19.1%. If he doesn't get to that 28%, he isn't going to get a single delegate out of Texas, and he hasn't won a single state yet. That's the darling of the establishment. They have called Tennessee for Trump, as well as Georgia and Virginia, and he is still leading in Vermont, although Kasich is close to Trump in Vermont. It's 33 Trump, 30 for Kasich. Let's go to Roger Stone. Roger, give us your final comments on what you see so far tonight and what you think is ahead.
I still don't think this race is over. I think Donald Trump continues to be a strong front runner. He's going to have a lot of things to be proud of tonight. One big in Georgia, it appears. We don't know the results in Arkansas yet. It is very important to understand that in every one of these states, Donald Trump has been massively overspent, and he has very little political structure. All he has are the volunteers and the new people who have flocked to his candidacy. But the established order, the county chairman, the county committee people, they're not for Trump. The local Republican finance types, they're also not for Trump. This is a spontaneous phenomena. It's like a grassroots uprising.
Yes.
These numbers, even in a multi-candidate race, are very, very impressive, considering that Trump has very little paid television, very little infrastructure in terms of get out the vote. Trump is the best thing about the Trump campaign.
Absolutely. And he is, in the states that he has won, he is very strong, 40 to 50% in these states that they have called for him. And he is coming in at a close second in the states that he has lost to Cruz, Oklahoma and Texas so far. And, of course, there are more results that are going to be coming in. Thank you so much for joining us, Roger Stone, StoneZone.com. And, of course, if you want to try to keep this honest, go to stopthesteal.org. That's stopthesteal.org. That's another site that Roger Stone has that is there to help monitor the skullduggery that's going on. Of course, that's a term. Thank you so much, Roger Stone. Skullduggery is a... Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a term that was used by the New American, talking about how this looks like it's going to go into possibly a brokered convention, the things that the RNC could do. This is a quote from their article yesterday. They said one Southern state Republican Party chairman said that super PACs are calling to obtain the contact information on eligible delegates as well as those who served as delegates in the past. It's adding, there's a bit of skullduggery going on. I suspect some super PACs are behind some of this. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
Somebody like Roger Stone knows this, absolutely. Let's put out the phone number here. We'd like to get your comments and calls as we continue to look at the returns coming in. That number is 877-789-2539. That's 877-789-2539. That's the number you can call in to give us your comments, to tell us what you think about this, and also to let us know if you've seen any kind of voter irregularity. I thought it was very creepy the other day and we covered this. We played this a couple of times on the news, on the radio, seeing Reince Priebus explain to the CNN reporter, Allison Camerado, that, no, you don't understand what's going on, Allison. They are trying to join us. They want to join the RNC. Let's play a little bit of that clip.
Let's keep in mind, you asked the question in a way that I think is a little bit, these folks are competing to join us. I mean, that's what's happening, right? So they're competing to join the Republican Party
So
as our nominee,
condescending.
depending on what the delegates decide to do or who wins.
Look at her face.
The
Yeah.
requisite
So
amount
what
of
are you
delegates.
talking about?
Whoever
I mean,
that
but
is
they're
joins. That's what they're doing, though.
us.
They're competing to be the nominee of the Republican Party.
Yes,
That's
but they're
what's happening.
competing to
So-
become the president of the United States. And so they are looking for
But to
voters,
do that,
all voters,
right, but
to vote for them. I mean, my point is this,
No.
Rod, is that, look, listen,
No,
let me-
they're
No,
not.
they're
They're
not. They're not looking for voters. No.
I
Everyone
haven't been
needs
able
to
make my point.
remember where the
There are-
power
there are
lies.
two major
Right?
political
With us.
parties in America.
And we own this, and
Yeah.
they are going to be joining us
No.
because we are not sitting there as referees. Okay, we're not just managing this election. This is a selection. Okay, and these are people who are auditioning to join them. And as I said the other night, I guess that basically turns the debates into a giant hazing contest, which really is what it is kind of boiled down to. I think we're at the point where the frat needs to give Marco Rubio the black ball and say, sorry, it just didn't work out. You're not the kind of guy we're looking for in fraternity.
We like you, Rhonda, but you're not Kappa.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what's needed. It is absolutely amazing to see this. Our bronze medalist here, Marco Rubio, who hasn't won a single thing. Occasionally, he's come in second. He's had a fifth place showing. He's had several third place showings. He's got maybe a second place coming up tonight somewhere, but in most cases, he's in third place. Oh, yeah, Massachusetts, Marco Rubio is in second place, but that would be 18%, with Donald Trump at 49%.
Yeah.
So doesn't look too good for the Marco Roboto, okay?
Oh.
It's just, I don't understand how they keep trying to sell this guy. And again, we're looking at some of the results here. Ted Cruz, they've called it for him in Oklahoma, 34.7. Donald Trump at 29.6. So it's basically 35 to 30% there with Marco Rubio, again, the bronze candidate at 24%. And as Roger Stone was saying, in Oklahoma and in Arkansas, they were very concerned about voter fraud calls that they got in there, as well as in Texas. Two of those states have gone for Ted Cruz. Let's check and see how Arkansas is doing. Arkansas is currently
32% right now lead for Donald Trump.
It is still very, very close because this is early reporting. That's only 0.3% of those reporting in, and it is a razor-thin margin. Trump 2 points ahead of Marco Rubio right now in Arkansas. So we look at Arkansas. It's a very, very close race between Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. They're in second place for the bronze candidate. 29.6%, Donald Trump at 32.3%. But as Roger Stone said, that was one of the states that they'd had a lot of questions about fraud, as well as Oklahoma and Texas, the two states that were won by Ted Cruz tonight. So
Right.
again,
Well, it's interesting. I mean, even with having those machines switch Trump's votes to Rubio, he still was in third place behind Cruz. So who knows, with some of those votes being switched, that could have helped Cruz edge in there as well. But
let's talk about the media's role in all of this, because there was an article before the returns came in on the Drudge Report. The top article on the Drudge Report was the media got it wrong, essentially. Okay, and this is a report that came out of Politico. The media's Trump reckoning, everything they did was wrong. And this was the top story on Drudge, because I think it really shows who the biggest loser in this process has been. And that is the GOP establishment and the mainstream media, who are joined at the hip. And he talks about the editor of the New Yorker. He talks about the political editor of The Atlantic, who was there for many decades, talking about how dismissive they were of Donald Trump at the beginning, saying that this was all something just to promote his brand, that the whole con would end well before the first snows in Sioux City and Manchester, in other words, Iowa and New Hampshire. The guy who has been doing this for decades for The Atlantic said Donald Trump will not be the 45th president of the U.S., nor the 46th, nor any other number you might name. The chance of his winning the nomination and the election is exactly zero. And then they go on to talk about the Washington Post's blogger, Chris Zilla. Also, the New York Times number cruncher, Nate Silver, who is the guy that runs, I think it's 538, 528. I can't remember the name of the site. Nevertheless, all these people were openly dismissive of Donald Trump. Then at the same time, we look at this New York Times article that came out over the weekend talking about how Marco Rubio and the conservative media were conspiring to promote amnesty with the Gang of Eight bill. And this was something that has really caused a lot of repercussions throughout the conservative talk radio shows, as well as putting a black eye on Fox News. And this is what the New York Times said. They said a few weeks after Senator Marco Rubio joined a bipartisan push for immigration overhaul in 2013, he arrived with Chucky Schumer at the executive dining room of News Corporation's Manhattan headquarters for dinner. There he had dinner with Roger Ailes, the head of the news media, and with Rupert Murdoch, who owns the entire media empire. They said, we want you to help us, and I'm paraphrasing here, we want you to help us to sell amnesty. And they said, well, okay, but there's a lot of anger about this. In other words, people already know what this bill is. There's a lot of anger about this. In order for us to do this, you're going to have to get Rush Limbaugh to get involved with this as well. So they have a dinner with Rush Limbaugh. Now, Rush Limbaugh did not deny that he had the dinner. As we were out today, I was with my wife, and we went voting. And on the way back, I had it tuned to KLBJ because we were listening to the reports of the voter fraud and that sort of thing. Rush Limbaugh came out and said, oh, let's listen, see what Rush Limbaugh says about this New York Times story over the weekend. And he kind of, I guess he talked about it more yesterday, but he kind of obliquely referred to it. And he says, well, at that famous dinner, Chucky Schumer was saying, you got to do this, Rush. You got to sign on for amnesty because it'll be the end of the Republican Party. And he said, well, why would Chucky Schumer care if the Republican Party is over? Of course, he would want that to end.
Right.
And I thought, okay, fine. But then how do you explain the fact that you still said, even after all this happened, even after Marco Rubio comes to you, and even after you say you did not plug the Gang of Eight amnesty, you still have all these amazing things that you said about Marco Rubio, even at the beginning of February, when people had hoped that his third place finish in Iowa was going to portend great things for him. I'll say he's talking about what a Reaganite Marco Rubio is. Now, I've got these quotes from various headlines here. Rush Limbaugh says Rubio has what it takes. He said, Rubio, this is February the 3rd, he is a legitimate full-throated conservative. No way is Marco Rubio a conservative. He is full-throated, I'll give him that. But he is not a conservative. He is not legitimate by any means. He has betrayed the conservative voters. He doesn't stand for anything that I think we ought to, of course, if he stands for war, if he stands for taking away your individual liberties, maybe that is now the basis on which we judge people as being conservative. And then he goes on to say that he is Reaganite. This is what Rush Limbaugh said on February the 3rd. He said, Rubio is heavily influenced by Reagan, as was Ted Cruz. I think it's momentous. I think it's remarkable because the Republican Party establishment are trying to tie Rubio to this group that wants to get rid of Reagan and Reagan's influences, the Reagan fetish. The era of Reagan is over, and I think Rubio is a Reaganite. Really, really, absolutely amazing. And to say that the establishment was out to get Rubio. Do you see how the game is played? Do you really believe that in spite of all these protestations that no, they were not part of the fix, they were not trying to sell amnesty, they were not trying to sell Marco Rubio, and yet all of these internet links, all these headlines, all these videos, all these recordings are pretty stubborn because they're a matter of record. And so we can see how they've been selling this to us. Now, Sean Hannity was also listed in that, and he was very angry about this.
David, I'm going to jump in here real quick. Alex just texted me. He sent me a link to a video. It's a CNN video, and we're talking about conspiracies now, definitely going against where they're colluding against Donald Trump on this racist thing, this KKK. He doesn't disavow David Duke. He probably has no idea, doesn't even care who this guy is. But CNN is still pushing the issue, and we're going to go to this video here in a second. It's about a 2-minute video where it's not enough that he disavows David Duke. He doesn't disavow their ideology. So anybody that comes out and doesn't agree with the mainstream media, which David Duke definitely doesn't, but Trump is also pushing another narrative of everything's fixed, essentially. So what you have here is them saying, well, now he's got to decree everything. Anything that doesn't agree with the mainstream media, he has to decree it, or he's wrong, he's a racist, he's a bigot. So do we have that video queued up? All right, we're going to go to that video. It's going to be on Channel 8. So here's that video, and let's see what you guys think about this.
All right.
Some white supremacists, such as former Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard David Duke, may suggest support for Donald Trump.
Voting against Donald Trump at this point is really treason to your heritage.
But after a weekend of back and forth,
I disavow, okay? I don't know anything about David Duke, okay?
We still don't know if the Republican frontrunner wholly rejects the controversial support. It's a question Trump has been struggling to answer clearly for months.
Wow. What I heard was various groups, and I don't mind disavowing anybody, and I disavowed David Duke. And
yes, he has disavowed Duke. But the Republican frontrunner has yet to plainly condemn Duke's ideology, or that of the KKK and other white supremacist groups. The Anti-Defamation League has called for Trump to do just that, to no avail.
Not answering this question directly has some risks, but I think it has more rewards, which is that he is hoping to just go into Tuesday evening and win a lot of states and a lot of delegates, and then that will be what people are discussing.
This rally supporter recently made the controversial issue hard to ignore. But after taking a hard look at the message, Trump focused on the security response time instead.
You see, in the good old days, law enforcement acted a lot quicker than this.
When asked directly about white supremacist support this summer, Trump's response was one of confusion.
That I don't know about. I mean, you're telling me something I didn't know about that. Somebody else mentioned that also. I don't know about that.
So on this divisive issue, is he playing a game
Donald
of
Trump, do you have a list of every supporter and what their affiliation is and who they support?
News dust storm. We're not talking about some of the other negative news flow items that Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Marco Rubio are injecting into the conversation.
Whether Trump welcomes them or not, the pro-white support continues.
It is I who am supporting Donald Trump, not Donald Trump who's supporting me.
White nationalist leaders even released robocalls backing Donald Trump in New Hampshire this month.
We don't need Muslims. We
Look
need
at all
smart,
of this.
well-educated white people.
Trump doesn't shy away from questionable Twitter followers either.
Alex Jones did call it, I mean, he said today clearly there is this anti-white thing happening right now, and it's true. It really is. Everyone needs to go to my Twitter page and retweet all the videos that I've been posting of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton talking about, oh, you know, pesky rumors that he was in the KKK, but, you know, he had to join the KKK to get elected, talking about Robert Byrd. And then Hillary Clinton saying, oh, he was my mentor, and I'll take everything he said to me to heart, even after, you know, he's passed away. It'll be there at the top. Yeah, right there. So everyone retweet that, and at CNN, at MSNBC.
Exalted Cyclops.
That was, he was the exalted Cyclops of the KKK. You know, I mean, this is they're KKK apologists. So you send those to CNN, to MSNBC, Fox News, and force them to have Hillary Clinton disavow.
Why don't we start calling on Donald Trump to disavow Louis Farrakhan? Oh, you're not going to hear the mainstream media say that, because that would not fit their narrative of white supremacists supporting Donald Trump.
Right. He's disavowed Megyn Kelly at this point.
Exactly. But that gets back to what I was talking about. We had the mainstream media pushing amnesty. And how were they doing it? They were doing it on the basis of racism. If you opposed open borders, if you opposed amnesty, you were racist. They're not going to come out and say, we need to just pull all the countries of the world together into one globalist government, okay, which is really what's going on here. That's what Senator Jeff Sessions said when he looked at these trade treaties. He's been tutoring Donald Trump since last August. Now he's endorsed him. They're in agreement on this. This is a key issue. This is what is really behind the mainstream media coming together, using the conservative talk show host to push this agenda, to try to push amnesty. Now they're pushing this David Duke nonsense. And at the same time, you've got somebody like Louis Farrakhan saying, well, I support Donald Trump because he's his own man.
The
he's
leader
not
of the
begging.
Nation of Islam, and they're not going to tell him to disavow that extremist ideology.
We've got people all over the spectrum. As I mentioned earlier in the show, we had a lady who showed up at a Donald Trump rally in a Muslim hijab. She's an illegal immigrant, and she said, hey, I finished college here, but I want economic opportunity here. I don't agree with him on the Muslim immigration issue, although Louis Farrakhan does. So you see, people have all these different perspectives, and yet what they're doing is very transparent. Ron Paul sees it. Mike Huckabee sees it. We all see what you're doing. All of us understand exactly what's going on. Let's go to Richard Reeves, who is going to give us a report on what he's seen today at the various polling locations. Richard.
Hey, David, thank you very much. Well, I think part of what tonight really proves is the establishment is unable to field and was unable to field any candidate that could possibly take this election. I've been saying privately with folks that had it not been for Donald Trump, that Ted Cruz would in fact be the Republican nominee. Fortunately, there is Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is well on his way to getting the necessary delegates, provided that they don't pull off a delegate shenanigan at the RNC. I think he's on his way to having sufficient numbers of delegates. Ted Cruz outperformed by winning Oklahoma. Evidently, Fox has called Oklahoma for Ted Cruz. That's a little bit of a surprise, but it is a neighboring state for Texas. But as far as the local voting here, as many folks out there in the audience know, I was an alternate judge at my polling location, and there were some interesting changes going on at our poll in Travis County, and it varies from state to state. It varies from county to county. And in our county, one of the changes that they did was that on election day itself, in the old days, you had to go to your specific precinct poll to be able to vote. But on today's election, you could go to any, if you were a registered voter here in Travis County, where Austin, Texas sits in, then you could go to any poll in Travis County that was open and vote, regardless of what precinct you were in. So that was a big change, and that was interesting. And so that gave me kind of a different number. When I worked the poll previously in my precinct, usually the ratio of Democrat voters to Republican voters was as high as sometimes 8-to-1 Democrat versus Republican, or even 9 or 10-to-1 sometimes. You'd have 100 voters Democrat, you'd have 10 voters Republican in my precinct. But now there was a big skew, and a lot of that was due to the fact, though, that you could vote from any from any precinct there. So it was more of a 2-to-1 ratio. And as time goes by, I'll be able to analyze that more when we get all the numbers in. But it looks like the Republican votership in my precinct was somewhat higher. I don't think we're going to see an 8-to-1 Democrat to Republican ratio. I think it's going to drop down. By the time I'm able to look at all the details, I think we're going to drop down to 3 or 4-to-1, somewhere in that range. So it appears the Donald Trump phenomenon, the excitement in the Republican Party phenomenon has driven a lot more, even here in Travis County, that is traditionally a heavy Democrat county. I think we're going to see a lot more Republican voters in Travis County this time.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the delegates shake out. And, of course, Marco Rubio is not going to get any delegates, even from the at-large delegates across the state, because it doesn't look like he's going to make the 20% threshold. They're still only 4% in, but it's enough that they have called it for Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio is at 18.8%. Thank you, Richard. I want to get Joe Biggs, and we've got some callers on the line as well. Tony in South Carolina. We've got Adam in Wisconsin. Hang on. We're going to get to you in just a moment. I want to check in with Joe Biggs. Joe?
Hey, how's it going? It's definitely going to be interesting to see how all this pans out tonight, especially how, like we said earlier, how there is definitely some suspicious circumstances floating around these different states with these different fraud-like things happening. You know, I had an opportunity to actually go speak to the DJ at KLBJ earlier this afternoon, and he was telling me how callers were, kept calling in saying, hey, they're kind of upset. They're disappointed in the fact that they're trying to vote for Trump and it's switching over to Rubio. We had a report earlier that we did as well. In Virginia, a guy was handed a ballot that already had Marco Rubio filled out for the presidential nomination in the Republican Party. So there's definitely some trickery that is going on. And I want to, encourage people, if you're having this happen to you, to report that. Go to the website. What's that again, David, the one that Roger Stone has?
That was stopthesteal.org. Stopthesteal.org.
Yeah, so definitely everyone needs to go to that website and report these things so they can definitely look into it, because something like this, definitely isn't out of the ordinary. It's happened before, and Roger Stone's someone who's definitely dealt with that process before in the past. Like you said, in Texas right now, it says Cruz already has 32 delegates. Trump has 14 so far, has an overall of 182. Rubio has now moved into second with 28, and Cruz has 22, and Kasich coming in with 6. We got a lot more to go, but, Trump's got Virginia, he's got Tennessee, he has Georgia, Massachusetts, and Alabama. So we still have Colorado, Alaska, Minnesota to go thus far, and Vermont as well. So it'll definitely be interesting to see if Rubio is even able to pull anything out. And that is the man that the establishment is trying to push very hard.
Well, thank you, Joe. We're going to, I want to go to some callers and get their comments on what they see happening tonight. Let's go to Tony in South Carolina. Tony. Hello, Tony. Are you there?
I've been waiting for a little bit, so.
Okay.
Hey.
Tony, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? I want to talk about Hillary and Bernie.
Okay.
But to start this off, if they tried to steal Texas for Rubio, they evidently did it wrong.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to practice that stealing. Anyway, we had a Facebook post from a friend, and he said that he was so proud that he finally got to vote for somebody he really liked. But he didn't say who it was. And then this hashtag steal the burn. I thought about that. Well, Hillary's probably going to, do whatever she can to get the nomination away from Bernie, so he's kind of wasted his vote. Then I thought about recent reports of Hillary's physical condition, and I started wondering, well, if Hillary's really that ill, shouldn't we be finding out who her running mate is and then finding out the past history of those people?
Right. We were actually talking about that earlier. Is Bernie Sanders as well? Same thing.
Yeah. A lot of people, we had the death of Justice Scalia. Everybody was saying, hey, he's 79 years old. And it's like, well, you understand, Bernie Sanders is 75. So, I mean, if we're not supposed to be concerned and investigate the death of a Supreme Court justice who was alone and traveling at the time, then I guess, we've got a double standard going here. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The other thing, too, with Hillary Clinton are the legal issues. It's not just a health issue. There's been a lot of talk about that, but the legal issues are something that are very, very important.
And not going away.
Yeah, they're not going away. They're only hanging around. It looks like they're getting, I don't really know how they flush this down the toilet. Because when they flush this down the toilet, if they sweep all this under the carpet, what they have said is that the entire national security state, the entire Patriot Act, is a fraud.
Right.
None of it matters because you have the person who has the most closely guarded secrets that could result in the death of people that were exposed if these secrets become public knowledge, setting up an amateurish private server so that she can protect her political information there, but exposing classified information by the thousands. And they have sent people to jail. They have justified this entire national security state, which has become a religion. And if they allow Hillary Clinton to get away with this, how do they keep up that facade?
Right. And not to mention the fact that they've used fake names so they could avoid FOIA requests, to totally avoid any transparency with the American people. I mean, it's just a fraud all around.
Incredibly corrupt, incredibly corrupt. Let's go to, thank you, Tony. Let's go to Adam in Wisconsin. We got a lot of people on the line. I want to try to get through these calls. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank everyone up there at InfoWars for everything you guys are doing. Doing great service, not only for this country, but for the whole planet. And,
well, thank you for listening, because if you weren't there, if you guys weren't supporting us, none of this stuff would be happening. So it is a group effort, and you're part of that.
Right. And I mean, just seeing a candidate like Donald Trump in the running, that we can actually have somebody that represents the American people as opposed to this global cabal of insiders that think they can control the whole game and never give anybody a say is just so motivating and so amazing. And it's truly a manifestation of what the public really wants, and the government's just misrepresented the people for so long, and I think that's bound to come to an end.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, as everybody is saying, we looked at these exit polls, and we keep seeing from mainstream media the exit polls that they took. The central thing was people were angry about the establishment, angry about what government is doing, because over and over again, they tell us what they're going to do. And I would almost rather, we talk about things we disagree with the candidate on. I was saying earlier today, I would rather somebody say it to my face. I mean, it's the difference between somebody coming in with armed robbery and somebody coming in and acting as a burglar or a pickpocket, a sneak thief. And that's what we've had in the past. We've had these people in the GOP who stab us in the back. Just tell us up front when you don't agree with us. So that's why, even on the issues where I disagree with Donald Trump, I appreciate the fact that he's coming straight at me and telling it to my face, telling me what he believes, because I think that's an important way for us to change things. And I don't necessarily believe that he is beyond being able to be convinced. I said I'm not going to vote for somebody in the hopes that they're going to change their opinion down the road. Nevertheless, I think that if he's going to be honest enough to say, this is my opinion, at least we have a chance to do that. I'd rather somebody come at me and tell me that face to face rather than stab me in the back with their lies. Exactly. So thank you, Adam. Let's go to some of the other callers we got there. Let's go to Roy and Austin. Go ahead, Roy.
Hey, guys. I just wanted to preface by saying I've been listening to y'all's show for several years now, and I definitely agree with a lot of what y'all say. But I might rock the boat here a little bit with my view on Trump. So I'm going to preface this by saying when I first heard that Donald Trump was running for president, I was like, oh, my gosh, what is our country coming to?
Yeah, who wasn't?
I remember. Right. And then, I started listening to Trump and what he was saying, and I started drinking the Trump Kool-Aid, and I was like, oh, yeah, I like what he's saying. But then at the beginning of this year, I had this epiphany after seeing what was going on in the world that I honestly believe that he is a distraction to distract us what is going on in the country, to give us a false hope, and that they're going to try to sneak in some stuff this year, and we're going to be like, well, if we get Trump elected, maybe he can, go in there and undo some of that. I also believe...
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, I also believe that they could also use this opportunity, with the frenzy that's going on for Trump, if they do try to steal this election from him, we're talking about people drinking a lot of the Trump Kool-Aid and getting really angry almost to the point of rioting. We could be playing right into their trap with this.
Well, I'll tell you the way I feel about this. I think that if we're going to get into essentially a personality worship, we really haven't done our research. I said this earlier today on the 4th hour. There's always going to be things that you disagree with people on. When Senator Sessions endorsed Donald Trump, he said, hey, he's not perfect. I disagree with him on some issues. I disagree with him on a lot of issues. But I also see that he is the only candidate that we have had that has directly confronted this Trans-Pacific Partnership and the open borders and the climate change treaties. Not even Bernie Sanders is doing that, okay? He says he is opposed to the TPP because he doesn't like corporations. He doesn't like free trade in general. This isn't about free trade. He's completely wrong about that aspect of it. This is about managed trade. Donald Trump understands from what he has said, and of course he's been tutored by Senator Sessions, who is the only one who bothered to look at this. He understands what that's all about. I think when we look at the issues on which I disagree with him on the issues of civil liberties, on the issues of things like eminent domain, we have to understand that it's futile to think that a president is going to agree with you 100%. It's futile to think that a president is going to be able to fix everything. You're not going to be carried on a feather bed to a state of liberty. Let's just understand that we're going to have to do a lot of these things at the local and the state level.
Right.
So if we have a president who isn't really any different from the rest of the Republicans, isn't really any different than the Democrats on those issues, but he will fight them on the key issue. And I think the key issue of this election is the consolidation, the global consolidation that is about to happen, just as the key issue of the last election was Obamacare. They made sure they had Mitt Romney in place as well as Barack Obama. So regardless of which way it went, you were going to get Obamacare. This time, with the exception of Donald Trump, they are going to try to impose a globalist trade control as well as a globalist tax on us, take down the borders unless you vote for Trump. And so I think that's a real key issue. He may turn out to go the other way. That is always a possibility. But we know that we've seen that from all the Republicans.
But yeah, you're right.
Hey, David, let me jump in here for a second.
Sure.
There's a map here of Travis County, and here's Austin. And look, Rubio's got the most votes. It's the only county he won in Texas.
Huh.
Look
Interesting.
At that.
Interesting.
Now look down at the border. Look at all the border counties, all for Trump, just about. Trump and Cruz.
Wow.
But
I wonder
majority
why that
Trump.
is.
Wow.
It must
which you would think would go the other way because they have a very heavy Hispanic
exactly, but
population.
they want a wall.
That's right.
You know that
even the people who are
they
Hispanic,
want border security.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, because they're living in it. They see it every day. And that's exactly what a veteran pollster, Pat Cadell, says, that the establishment cannot stop Trump and his populist candidacy because they themselves cannot recognize the legitimate concerns that are motivating the people right now to back Trump, which is, of course, the issue with immigration, the issue with trade, and wanting to bring jobs back to America.
Yeah.
And so these are the real things, but the establishment is just trying to silence the concerns of the voters, and people are saying no. Just like you spoke earlier about the Muslim woman who came in her hijab and she was there. She said, I want a job. I want an opportunity.
Exactly.
And also the fact that he wants to put a temporary ban on Muslims being brought into the country that can't be properly vetted. Even she says, you know.
These issues transcend the balkanization, the political correctness that they're trying to impose upon people. At what Rob pointed out, the fact that Travis County was the only county that Marco Rubio covered, the county where we had multiple reports of Trump votes being switched to Rubio. Now, an earlier caller, an earlier caller said, hey, if they're trying to flip Texas for Rubio, they're doing it wrong because he's way down and he's at 18.7%. Here's the key. He has to get to 20%. That's what they were trying to do, was to get him to 20%.
And they want Cruz, I think, to take Texas, not Trump.
That's right. That's right. So they would like to take away from Trump. They would like to bring Rubio up so he at least gets some delegates there at that 20% threshold. So far, that's not happening, even with Travis County going for Marco Rubio. Thank you, Roy in Austin. Let's go to Adam in Canada. I want to try. We got the phone lines loaded here. I want to try to get through as many calls as we can. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, hi, David.
Hi.
Thanks. Nice to talk to you again. Thanks for having me on. Am I the only person who thinks Ted Cruz looks like a creepier version of George McFly?
That's a good way to put it.
I know Joe Biggs has a few memes out with some side-by-side comparisons. You might want to put
shows him as a grandpa from the Munsters. Yeah, there's an interesting meme there.
But now my statement is, if the GOP is looking for a uniter, then Donald Trump's their man, seeing as he's got the endorsement of David Duke, Louis Farrakhan, Pat Buchanan, Jerry Falwell Jr., and Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, how about that?
Diverse coalition.
Exactly, and that's what we're seeing everywhere. You know, we see these early polls coming out of exit polls coming out of some of these early voting states. He was carrying every demographic. He was carrying every demographic. In South Carolina, he beat Ted Cruz with the evangelicals. They were 73% of the vote, and he got the lion's share of those.
Deep South.
Yeah,
he took the whole Deep South.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And he's going to take Florida. Absolutely.
But they don't want that. They don't want a unifier. They don't even necessarily want somebody who's going to win. They want somebody who is going to push this agenda. Like I said, the thing on their agenda this time is the globalist consolidation, the economic consolidation, because the sovereignty will follow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's not going to happen under Trump.
No, no. And so that's why they're opposing him. They don't want to just win an election. And it isn't just that, they want to keep their private country club sacrosanct or whatever, when they talk about it. They're trying to join us. They're going to join us, right? Reince Priebus.
So if they actually feel this from Trump and Trump supporters, do you think that there will be maybe even a clash or like a civil war action?
I don't know what will happen because, there were a lot of people that were very angry about the obvious fraud with Ron Paul. There were just so, and we won't go into all the details of it, but anybody that was paying attention knows what happened with that. And unfortunately, and there were a lot of people who were very, very upset, myself included, to see that Ron Paul didn't push back harder against that. Donald Trump will push back against that.
Oh, yeah.
And his supporters will push back against that. And he has a broader base and a larger base, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, we've even got the idiotic thing floating out from the Republican establishment saying, hey, we need to break off and create our own party. And it's like, you know what? You've had your own party.
Right.
It's just we hear from Priebus saying, they're joining us.
Yeah.
They've been running this as their own little private party. So fine, go somewhere else. If there's something magic about two parties, let it not be the GOP and the Democrat Party, perhaps. Let's put both of them on the trash bin of history and create some different political parties. And I think what we see here is a major realignment. This is what Pat Buchanan has talked about. There's an article that he put on WND that's been linked by Drudge. He says, this is a major realignment, win or lose for Trump, because we saw a major realignment when Barry Goldwater ran and didn't win. You saw Ronald Reagan come out of that. You saw a real change in the Republican Party. So he believes there's going to be a real realignment, win or lose, for Donald Trump coming out of this.
Yeah, and if you want to make a comparison with Ron Paul, Donald Trump's got a way bigger war chest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Billion.
Absolutely.
Billion.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
So that'll be
thanks
interesting.
for having me on.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Let's go to Douglas in Fargo, North Dakota. Yeah. Go ahead. Fargo.
Wow. Well, hey, guys, I'm glad to be here. I first want to say thanks for being able to share up to 10 people, because I have like 3 other people watching this right now, and it's great to be able to share the facts from the propaganda they've been listening to.
Great. Great. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate you putting that out. Go ahead. Your question?
North Dakota has not voted yet, and a few of us have even talked about with the voter fraud coming out and whatnot, how there's different machines and technologies for voting across the nation. As an IT guy, I've seen it all over the place. And last year, we just filled it in with a pencil, put it into a machine, and then we see the interviews and what's going on, the difference today, that when you see something like that, are you able to change that? I mean, is that something that you can say, well, I didn't vote for that, I need that machine to change that? I mean, I haven't seen that.
Well, that's a problem. I mean, one of the only reasons that you would want to go to electronic voting would be if you had the capability to audit your own vote, to know that it had been recorded and counted. And then people who believe that there was fraud going on could all say, here's my vote, put it up on social media. When we had the people in here, Big Mike and the others that were doing the documentary in Bulgaria, we had, I can't remember the man's name. He is from Bulgaria, and he was a computer expert. He was creating an electronic voting system in Bulgaria that was set up so that Ivan was his first name. I don't remember the last name, though. But Ivan had created an electronic voting system that would allow you to audit your own vote and to basically set that up. That would be the only reason that you would want to do an electronic voting. Otherwise, if you don't have that kind of capability, all you're doing is exposing the entire voting process to a lot of risk. It's the same thing we're talking about with our phones, with our cars. That's one of the reasons why we don't want to see the cars taken over that way, is because you're exposing them to hacking, to vulnerability. You're adding a whole new level of problems, just like with smart guns. You got all your mechanical issues. Now you got all the electronic issues and software issues.
Oh, it looks like Marco Rubio's leading in Minnesota.
But like this guy that invited had his vote recorded as Rubio instead of Trump, for example, did the machine end up recording it as Trump, or did it finish as Rubio?
Well, we don't really know, but what they saw at those polling places, and I don't know because I had a different type of thing in the county where I voted.
It's a tough question, actually. It's a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
I understand.
But it would show, as they would put it in, it would show what they had voted, and they said, wait a minute, that's not what I said, and they called it to the attention of other people. But I think a lot of people would be in a hurry. They would look at it, maybe not see that, and not report that. And then, of course, if you're voting like I did, and you just put the little pencil circles on the piece of paper, and then you shove it into a box. I don't know how that's been voted. I don't have any way to verify that.
Very important going forward to make sure people pay attention when they're voting, and maybe even get some video of it if it is switching, so we can have documented proof.
Yeah, there's really no verification in the process. Hey, to finish up, thanks, Leanne, for smacking Alex around today. I saw that video. I just laughed, and it was the first time Alex had ever actually grabbed me for about the 10, 15 seconds thinking, what just happened?
Yeah, so many people were hitting the unsubscribe button, and they were well, it was quite a fun skit.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
Guys.
Thank you, Doug. And we've got Alex on the line. Alex Jones, go ahead.
David, I was going to just basically add the piece that you guys aired earlier is just an in-case example, forget Donald Trump, of globalist programming.
Mm-hmm.
He basically rejected the Klan in 2001 himself. He said, I'm leaving the Reform Party because David Duke's in it. Then they cut his audio off, a classic tactic to confuse him. He said, who? What groups? David who? Then... And he just gave a speech earlier, just 10 minutes ago. He's up there giving one right now, where they said again, will you disavow? And he went, boom. And he laid out 6 times he's disavowed
since they first did it over the weekend. But he said, you keep asking it like the viewers are stupid. And so I disavow the Klan, David Duke. I disavow. But this is their mind control.
Yeah.
Oh, but they want him to get in. Yeah.
And so separate from Trump, the globalists are killing nationalism. They want to strangle hope. It's not that Trump's perfect or even a good guy. It doesn't matter. This is the whole power structure against him, and the Koch brothers put all their energy in the Republican Party and Fox News behind Marco Rubio, and he is imploding right now. So this is good news for the awakening. And I know we were the first to say it 6 months ago, but now it's all over the news. This is a movement. This is an insurrection. People don't buy the system.
Right.
And quite frankly, they ran this hoax pretty well, that he was basically a Klan member, and that even backfired on him. With black voters all over TV and stuff, you know, well, you're against Trump, right? Well, no, actually, I'm sick of the race stuff. So it just shows that this is the beginning of the end for the establishment, unless they start a new, nuclear war or a huge false flag. But Donald Trump, is a wild man. Sleeps 3 hours a day, whatever. I know people that know him; they say that's actually the case, not just stone. He is a maniac alpha male. I do think he wants to be a big shot and save the country. If you really listen to what he actually says, almost all of it makes sense. A few things are red meat, like, hey, torture, and hey, break into iPhones and stuff like that. But we know the globalists are bad news. We just got to keep Donald Trump honest. But the reason they've shifted to nothing but racial politics with him is because they now know he's going to win the nomination. They now know he's going to get the delegates. And they want to either demonize him and say, well, he deserves to have it taken away, with Paul Ryan and the Republican leadership, basically coming out and demonizing him, or so they can basically try to get Hillary in on the back of, quote, racism again and claiming that he hates women. And they've been pre-programming that with Megyn Kelly and everybody else the whole time. Marco Rubio could say, he's got little hands and that means he has a little member and all this stuff. That's all okay. And, Hillary can call him names. People can call him Hitler, and foreign governments can tell us what to do. Everything's okay, but a male standing up and saying we're going to try to have sovereignty and save the country, and they go, oh, he wants protectionism. As he points out, China has such a low currency rate that it's a giant internal tariff against us. No environmental standards, slave labor. All of these are unorthodox tariffs. You put our regulations and controls in, it's impossible. And now the last jobs, literally we've lost more than 60% of our industrial base, and that's our base to operate as a sovereign nation. Now that last 40% is eroding. Within 3 years, I've seen numbers in the Wall Street Journal, we'll be down to 10%. We are absolutely being dismantled. For real. That's not words. Literally. I use that word so much because, this is not hyperbole. We are literally being turned into a cashless fiat system for total control. We are being dismantled. We are being shut down right now. And the reason Donald Trump's good, whether he's a good guy or not, is he's exposing globalism as a deindustrialization tool to consolidate control and sign us on to foreign treaties that are outside of our sovereignty. We have been conquered. We have been occupied. He's now starting to talk about that in letters. He's about to start talking about that in public. And as I've said 100 times, this is game over when the people realize the full horror. And people say, well, that's scary. What's good about the full horror? Admitting the crisis. If you've got a broken leg with a compound fracture, if you deny it and try to walk on it, it's going to get worse. You're going to get gangrene and die. Admitting we've got a compound fracture, going in for emergency surgery, we can be back on our feet in a month. If we don't, we're going to die. We are bleeding to death. We have a compound fracture. We have gangrene. We are in deep trouble, people. The globalists have taken every country over. They want us bankrupt. They want us poor. They want to extinguish our freedom forever. They want to nail America down. This is it. And Donald Trump is a manifestation, the organic manifestation of a death rattle. Now, if we get up off the bed, we're going to win. But if we don't, it's over. And Trump's got his own problems. Believe me, this is first wave of the awakening. If Trump doesn't deliver on every front, he's going to be out on his butt in 4 years. But here's the deal. We haven't dealt with assassination attempts, the false flags, the dirty tricks, the stuff they're going to bring out. They are in panic mode. I watched them on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC this week going, Of course, it's been proven he's mafia. It has mafia ties. It's in books. It's in law enforcement. It's known. It's proven, showing no facts. So we knew that was coming. They are on. They are moving. But the good news is they're out of bullets, and Donald Trump is the masthead. He's nothing but a figurehead on the end of the ship. We are the ship. We are the sails. And reality and history is the wind and the ocean we're riding on and we're sailing on. And I'm going to go ahead and eject out of here. But when you see him play this game, CNN finally had to go, well, he did disavow, but he didn't disavow their views. What a game. I disavow the Klan. I disavow David Duke. I've never supported him. I left a party in 2001 on my own volition for the Media Minute issue. I disavow. And they go, but you didn't disavow their views. It's like saying, are you for child molestation? You go, no, I've never been involved in it. I hate it. I disavow it. You go, he says he's against child molestation, but he won't disavow the practices. He now needs to walk through 500, paragraphs of descriptions of everything. It's like, I disavow cannibalism. I've never eaten human flesh. Well, describe how you cook humans and describe how you roast them as long hams and describe that you're against cannibalism. Or have you ever beat your wife? No, I disavow it. Well, describe what it's like when you knock a woman's teeth out and break her jaw and burn her with hot coat hangers. This is their, and they have the Southern Poverty Law Center in ADL on there with these little swollen, little soft cubicle creatures going, he didn't do it properly. These people that want to control language and tell us how to think and tell us what to do and turn us all against each other and jack with us. There is a technocracy, a scientific end of humanity takeover happening on record. We better all get together right now for low taxes, sovereignty, the family, getting away from screen time, eating organic, getting the glyphosate out of the water and the food, getting our hearts right with God, and regenerating under this attack. Death is here. The devil is on the planet, folks, and everything you're seeing is a manifestation of dehumanization, and the beast system hates Donald Trump. Even though he is far from perfect, the fact that he's a man saying we should have prosperity, they want him destroyed. They want you hopeless, begging for crumbs from them, and that's what this comes down to, and these people are sick traitors. Great job with your coverage. I only got about 30 minutes left. I'm going to throw it back to you and all the fabulous listeners and, of course, all the great callers. Alex Jones signing off. I'll continue to watch right now here at my computer via the television on Roku and Boxy at home. Great job. We'll be back tomorrow, Lord willing, 11 a.m. Central for the kickoff of the main InfoWars Live.
Thank you, Alex Jones. And we want to remind you, we're going to go to our callers. We're not going to take any more calls. We're going to go to the people that are still on the line. And we're going to go to Jakari first. But before we do, I want to remind you that we have extended the leap year sale. That's a massive 30% off at everything at the stores, InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com. Everything at the store, 30% off and free shipping on any orders over $50. We've extended that through midnight tonight. I believe it will go through the end of the show tomorrow. But that is a massive sale. Take advantage of that. Let's go to Jakari Jackson. We'll go back to your calls. Jakari.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Go ahead.
Some quick updates on the delegate numbers. Now, the delegates number from place to place, the site I'm using is the Huffington Post. And Mrs. Clinton is definitely in the lead with 436. Donald Trump has 139, and then the numbers only go down further from there. They're still bringing in the numbers from the various states. For example, I have Alabama pulled up right here, has Trump in the lead as well as Mrs. Clinton. Now, when Alex was on the show just a second ago, he was referencing the statements made by Paul Ryan concerning Donald Trump and his affiliation to the Klan. And, so I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not voting for the guy. But to be fair, like if I put on a MSNBC shirt and went and robbed a liquor store, MSNBC is not responsible for the actions of me. So if David Duke decides to endorse Donald Trump, I don't think Mr. Trump is responsible for that. And more than that, I have a clip from Trump, if we can make sure the audio is pulled up. And we're going to let you guys hear what he had to say just a second ago.
Mr. Trump, you said that Major's question earlier was about working with Congress. You criticized President Obama for not working with Congress, but you dismissed the criticism from Speaker Ryan and from Senate Majority Leader McConnell, who say that you were equivocating about this issue with these hate groups.
I wasn't equivocating. Let's not ask it again. How many times do I say? Listen, who are you, by the way? Who are you with?
I'm Jared Rizzi. I'm with Sirius XM Radio.
Okay, very good. Good job. Look, I don't want to waste a lot of time. I've disavowed. Okay, I'm going to get along great with Congress, okay? Paul Ryan, I don't know him well, but I'm sure I'm going to get along great with him. And if I don't, he's going to have to pay a big price, okay? Okay.
So basically, there it is right there. He said, hey, you know, I'm not in with David Duke. You know, hopefully myself and Paul Ryan, referring to himself, could get along fine. But if they don't, you know, they'll figure something else out because, of course, he'd be president by that time anyway. So, you know, it's another tactic. Like I said, you know, there's a bunch of things that you can criticize the guy on. The David Duke connection, I don't think, is one of them.
Jakari, that's an example of why people are rebelling against the GOP party. When you think about the fact that Mitch McConnell, leader of the Senate, and Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, would continue to push this for day after day after day. This is as phony as the push poll that was conducted against John McCain by George W. Bush and Karl Rove back in 2000, where they said, would it affect your vote if you knew that John McCain had an illegitimate black child? Remember that? Because he had adopted somebody, a dark-skinned girl from Bangladesh or something like that. And so they turned it into that to try to feed people's racism, okay? And that's what they're doing in a different way. It's a different twist, but that's precisely what they're doing. It is the same kind of dirty politics that we see from Ted Cruz. I am sick of it. The public is sick of it. People see through it. And it's just not working. I mean, we got Louis Farrakhan endorsed him as well. So does he have to disavow Louis Farrakhan? They're not calling on him to disavow Louis Farrakhan. And the reason they won't is because it shows that, as we just had a caller earlier say, if they want somebody that's across the spectrum, then they would want to go with Donald Trump because he's got people from all over the place.
Well, then he'd also have to disavow the ideology of Islam.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not going to have him...
Well, it's absolutely. Thank you so much, Jakari Jackson. I want to go to our phone calls real quickly because I don't want to keep these people waiting longer. And we're not taking any more phone calls, but I want to try to clear off the people that are already on the board. Let's go to John Christopher in Missouri. John Christopher, go ahead.
Hey, David, how you doing?
Doing good. Go ahead.
Very good. Well, I'm a senior in high school. I'm 18 years old, and this message is really directed towards all of the youth out there that are getting ready to vote this year. And those of you listening who know me know that I do my own internet radio broadcast. I'm just going to say, Trump is the only chance we've got. He's come out about 9/11 truth. He's the only one who's had the huevos to do what he's done. And if we can't wake up and see that he's better than Hillary or Bush, I think we deserve what's coming to us.
I agree, absolutely. Yeah, there's a huge difference between Donald Trump and these people like Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan who are playing these phony gotcha games like they're doing with David Duke. We're tired of that. We want to move on beyond that. He has punctured the bubble of political correctness, that Marxist tool that they use to shut people up. He has come out against what I said I believe is the main thrust of this election, and that is to move to the next step of their globalist consolidation. He is the big obstacle in that. That's why they will take him down, no matter how embarrassing it is to them, and we have to be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much, John. Let's go to CJ in Ithaca, New York. CJ.
How you doing this evening? Basically, what I was going to say, I was raised up Republican, and I kind of have this ideology growing up. You know, I really didn't vote growing up because I didn't understand the whole Republican thing. I didn't understand voting. You know, you grow up in a town like I did. It was, you know, kind of diverse. But when it comes down to, like, Trump, I feel like it's necessary to for me to really understand, because it woke me up when I watched him. Every time I see this, hear about this wall, I keep thinking about those concrete mediums with rebar in it. But seriously, I really feel like this is the reason why he's getting so many votes. I mean, I'm sitting here watching Fox now, and I'm seeing Georgia 40.5%. But the question is Hillary gonna get the major votes? Do you think that?
I don't think so. I mean, I know that there's different polls that keep coming out, say various things, and they were just had some polls that came out that showed that Donald wasn't doing as well as the other people against Hillary. I don't believe that. There were polls that I saw this weekend on Real Clear Politics that showed that Donald Trump, and it was 3 different states, that showed that he did far better in a one-to-one matchup against Hillary than Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio did. As a matter of fact, he was the only one who beat her by a significant margin, but he did significantly better than the two of them did in head-to-head matches in those states. That was a more detailed polling. What we're seeing, and this is why I think he can beat Hillary Clinton, it's why I think he's the only one who can beat Hillary Clinton. What we're seeing is in state after state, we're seeing people crossing the lines, just like they did for Ronald Reagan. You're seeing Reagan Democrats. People are concerned about their jobs. He's not an ideological candidate. He is an economics candidate for one aspect of it. So you see people who are crossing the lines. You see a lot of Democrats who are coming there. You got record numbers of people who are showing up. He's appealing to people who have not voted in the past, independents and Democrats. I think they're very fired up for him. They're not fired up for Hillary Clinton on her side. I think he's going to do very well in a one-to-one matchup with Hillary. What do you think, Leanne?
Well, I mean, I'm just pretty frightened of the prospect, just considering how much scandal has followed this woman and the fact that we're even having this conversation, and that I knew it last year that she was going to be the one the Democrats would put up there. And
oh, yeah. Well, yeah, but a lot of people thought that it was going to be Jeb Bush as well. And, of course, we can be grateful that that didn't happen. Nevertheless, Hillary is going to be the candidate that they're going to try to make sure that she gets in. Even the Republican establishment is going to be pushing for Hillary Clinton to get in over Donald Trump, because she will be their path to getting this globalist agenda pushed through to the next level. Thank you, CJ. Let's go to Adam in Washington State. Adam, go ahead.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing good.
I just want to let you know I'm a huge fan, and I want to thank you for putting Roger Stone on, because I never actually heard of the guy until you guys posted him up, so I got a lot of good information from him. And I'll actually be first time voting in this election. But the question I actually have is, so there's 2 states that Trump lost and possibly any more that lose, and they do find voter fraud and seeing that his votes were switched. Would it be possible that they seen it and then moving the votes back to Trump, and then all of a sudden that he wins those states? Would he get those delegates in that state?
I'm sorry, what was that again? If they repeat that about delegates? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, okay, the question I have is, since Trump lost Oklahoma, Texas, and is losing right now in Minnesota, say Trump loses since he lost those 2 states, another state, possibly another state, maybe other states, and they find voter fraud in those, and that those votes that were for Trump went to Rubio or Cruz, and find out that there was a mishap and switch them back to Trump, would it be possible to switch it to where Trump actually won those states?
Well, what they would wind up doing is they would have a recount or something like that, okay? And understand that at this point, all of these delegates are proportionately allocated. So, for example, in Texas, the delegates are going to be split between Ted Cruz, who won, and Donald Trump if things remain as they stay. Marco Rubio looks like he's not going to get any delegates. They've still got him at 18.2%. So understand that at this point, we don't have a winner-take-all in most cases. Ted Cruz would have to get over 50%, for example, in Texas to trigger that. But there's not too many states that have a winner-take-all trigger. So they're still being apportioned proportionately at this point. Still, Donald Trump is doing very well in the delegates. And even though they're proportionately allocated, as we saw in South Carolina, he got all of them because he won all of the congressional delegates. And each congressional district was how they did it. So they had a winner-take-all per district and made it proportional in that sense. Texas and most of the states that are going now are kind of a mixed bag between proportional at large, in other words, for the whole state, and those congressional districts. So we'll see how this shakes out. But he is doing really well as far as delegates go when we look at the vote totals tonight, because he is in first or second place everywhere. And you can't say that about any other candidate. Thank you, Adam. Let's go to Margie. Margie, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I'm thanking Alex Jones for introducing me to Roger Stone's website, where I was all along I've been trying to decide between Trump and Cruz, and I liked Trump all along, but I'm a Christian, and so I felt I should go with Cruz until I read Roger Stone's dissertation on Ted Cruz and his wife and the New World Order. And I'm thankful for that, because not only did I change my mind, but I have spoken with other people as well. And it was a real I felt so relieved when I decided that I would go with Mr. Trump because from the beginning I felt like he has had such courage and of his convictions to mention things like the wall and 9/11 and those types of things. And I really I thank Alex Jones for having him on. I've listened to Alex for a long time, but I just wasn't familiar with Mr. Stone, and I really I will be a devotee of his from now on.
Yeah, he has been around a very long time. He is a very experienced and knowledgeable political consultant. And when you talk about Ted Cruz, as his former law professor Lawrence Tribe had pointed out, he really needs to explain to people his basis for claiming that he is a natural-born citizen. Ted Cruz is a naturalized citizen. Marco Rubio is as well, but neither of them, in my opinion, meet the original constitutional declaration of a natural-born citizen. And what Ted Cruz did when he was called on it in the debate, when it first came up, he said, well, I've argued before the Supreme Court. I know that I'm a natural-born citizen, and if you're going to question my qualifications, then Marco Rubio would be out as well. And it's like, that's not an answer. You owe it to the American people to tell us, if you're a constitutional lawyer and you've argued before the Supreme Court, at least make your case to the American people as to why you would be allowed to, why you would be eligible. And that was the point that his Harvard law professor said. His Harvard law professor said, hey, I believe in a living document interpretation of the Constitution, that it ought to be constantly changed by the Supreme Court. But Ted Cruz says he doesn't. Ted Cruz said that he would appoint originalist, literalist judges to take the Constitution as it was originally written. And he said that kind of judge would say that Ted Cruz is not eligible to run. And so on that issue, on many other issues that I've seen Ted Cruz flip on, and when you talk about, you say you're a Christian, and I'm a Christian as well, I think a lot of evangelicals are not drinking the Cruz Kool-Aid because we've seen the types of things happen with Ben Carson in Iowa that really I found to be revolting. Clearly, if you look at the time, the timeline of the events there, it really doesn't match his explanation. As Roger Stone said earlier tonight, his prevarications were truly Nixonian. Okay, it really was like listening to Richard Nixon again.
Yes, well, even greater than that is his wife's affiliation with the New World Order and the globalists.
Yes.
That if he is a Christian man, that is not compatible with Christianity, and he's supposed to be the spiritual leader of his home, and that philosophy of the New World Order and the globalism is so counterproductive and so counter to Christianity that that's what woke me up.
Yeah, when you look at the think tank, the CFR. The fact that they're pushing for a North American Union, I've made the point. It's like, well, maybe Ted Cruz believes that he's qualified to be a North American Union president. So, you know, even though he's from Canada, you know, why should that be an obstacle to him being president of the new North American Union? I agree with you totally, Margie. Thank you so much. Let's go to Bobby in Pennsylvania. Bobby.
Hi, David and Leanne. I just had a quick question, and then I guess my real question. Is Trump not winning Texas a huge defeat? I definitely thought or was hoping that he would win Texas.
He was never leading in. Let me tell you real quick. I'll answer that question real quickly, and then let you ask your next question. He was never leading in the polls. There were a couple of times that he was within striking distance, and it looked like it was a toss-up. There might have been one poll where he was ahead by 2% or something. But for the most part,
people were expecting Cruz would win his state.
Yeah, for the most part, we've seen Ted Cruz 10 to 15 points ahead. If you go back and you look at Real Clear Politics, they give you a moving average of a lot of different polls because they vary quite a bit. And if you look at those, I think it was about 15% that they expected Ted Cruz. And here he is. He's at 41, and I'm sorry, that's Tennessee. In Texas, it's 41, and Trump is at 28. So there you go, 13 points. That's about what we've seen in the polls, so that's not really a surprise. Go ahead, your next question.
Okay, well, thank you for that, because like I said, maybe just wishful thinking. But watching the man on the street videos, Leanne, you did one. Where is it even worth defending the argument against a Hillary supporter or a Bernie supporter? Or am I better off with someone who just says they don't care, and I can try to inform them about what's going on? Because battling with a Hillary or a Bernie supporter is very draining.
Well, it is very draining. And, you know, this is one of those things that I don't really like to do. Obviously, here in Austin, we have a ton of Bernie supporters. A lot of them are my friends. And so I know that they're in it for the right reasons. A lot of these people that are feeling the burn because of the things that he says, you know, it hits all those chords. But it's just not going to work. And I think that it is probably very important to educate yourself on the economics of why that won't work. Explain. Everyone's always wanting to say, well, look at Sweden, look at these other socialist countries that are successful. Well, the United States is not like that. We have a huge deficit. Our budget, they're wealthy. They actually have money that they can have a welfare state.
They haven't run out of other people's money yet because they started from a higher standpoint. But you look at Venezuela, you look at Nicaragua, that Bernie Sanders, I call him Bernie Sandernista, loves so much. They didn't start with that much of a cash cushion, and they ran out of other people's money very quickly, even though they confiscated so many different industries.
Right, which is exactly what will happen to the United States, especially his plan is going to add trillions to that without any reasoning for how he's going to be able to pay that back. So we would end up like Venezuela with 5-hour bread lines and empty shelves at the grocery store.
I understand people liking Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is authentic. He truly is.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get. He has been pushing the same kind of 1960s socialism and communism his entire life. And there's a certain authenticity about it, but it's still wrong. Okay? He's still wrong on the issues. He was wrong to support Daniel Ortega and the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. He learned absolutely nothing from it. So sometimes consistency like that can simply be foolishness. But I understand that when you compare Bernie Sanders to somebody like Hillary Clinton, it is very, very appealing. And at the basis of the Democrat Party is a socialism, just as at the basis of the Republican Party, there is a kind of libertarianism, a focus on the individual and on opportunity, whereas on an equality of opportunity, I should say, on the Republican side, whereas on the Democrat side, they're looking for equality of results. They're not looking for freedom, they're looking for free stuff. And so that combined with the authenticity of Bernie Sanders, that he has consistently done the things that he's done his entire life, that is something that's very attractive to Democrat voters. I understand that. We saw that in Ron Paul 8 years ago, okay? We saw that kind of authenticity. Ron Paul was always had taken these positions his entire life. I believe Ron Paul was right in those positions, just as I believe Bernie Sanders is wrong. But both of them were authentic. Both of them had a lifetime of commitment to a set of principles that you have to respect even if you disagree with it. And so I respect his consistency, even if I think it's foolish. I'll just put it that way, from Bernie Sanders. Thank you. Let's go to...
We've got a Bound report that we're going to...
Yeah, you want to play a Bound report real
come
quick?
back to the callers. Let's go to a little break.
All right,
now.
let's take a quick
break.
break.
About the 30%.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna play John Bound's report on the vote switching that went on today, and we saw Rubio win. Looks like Travis County, and then we're gonna go to a few of our ads, and then come back, and we'll finish up with calls.
All right, stay with us, callers. We'll be right back.
It's Super Tuesday, and the gloves have come off. Reports of votes being switched from Trump to Rubio are flooding the local Austin talk radio station KLBJ AM as voting began early Tuesday morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. What's up?
Hey, I just got a heads up advice for people voting today. I just voted, and in reviewing my ballot, I'll just tell you I voted for Trump, and when I reviewed it, it had Rubio marked.
What? Okay. So you marked Trump, and then you went back to check your selections when you were done, and it was suddenly Rubio.
My mother, she's 85. She did early voting last week,
and she went in there and she pushed the button for Trump, and when she checked it before she left, it went to Rubio, and she brought that to their attention after she changed it back, and they kind of treated her like she just didn't know which button to push.
Wow, you're the second person that said that.
And so it wasn't until the very end when I was checking my ballot that I noticed that I was listed as I didn't see my candidate. And so I called over the gentleman and I said, hey, I'm not seeing my presidential vote. And then he just said what he could was, you've voted uncommitted. Hi, how are you this morning?
Good. How can we help you?
Well, I was a little concerned, and I just wanted to report this. I've heard this now from two different people, one being from your show about the gentleman in Georgetown who tried to vote for Donald Trump this morning, and it showed up as Rubio.
That's it. We've had a couple of those, yeah.
Well, I had the same experience. We voted at the location at the Church of Christ Church in Leander, and I placed my vote for Mr. Trump. Definitely. And upon reviewing before confirming, it showed up as Elizabeth Gray.
Complaints from the Boston area, people attempting to vote today, telling us that the lever will not go down over Donald J. Trump's name. We saw the massive cheating in Ohio that most likely delivered the state to George Bush over John Kerry. There's a lot of evidence the machines were tampered with then. 4 years later, under Mitt Romney, you may recall, Alex, that Karl Rove was incensed on Fox when he was told that Romney would lose Ohio. He was incensed. He said it had to be wrong. That's because Karl thought that he had taken care of that problem. Evidently, Barack Obama came in with a higher bid to the local poobahs, the people who controlled the machinery. But those Diebold machinery, those Diebold voting machines, the Diebold, all their executives, the family, they're all major donors to the Bush machine. So there's plenty of reason for cause here. We are not going to let this nomination be stolen from Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, the hidden truth behind Rubio's alleged attendance at homosexual foam parties continues to fight its way to the surface. InfoWars investigative reporter Wayne Madsen writes, in its latest spewing of venom, the Daily Beast blamed white supremacists for being behind the Rubio gay past stories. The Beast article also claimed that after Alex Jones's Prison Planet and InfoWars ran the Rubio story, other fringe sites began to pile on. Wayne writes, for the information of the Beast and its foreign higher staff, WayneMadsonReport.com was the first to highlight Rubio's gay past in South Beach, Miami.
I mean, he's a male cheerleader jumping around in Chippendales outfit. Most of Chippendales, it's known are gay. And then, boom, he looks like he's at gay foam parties. Explain what foam parties are.
A foam party was, they held them at these gay clubs in South Beach where a bunch of gay guys would get on the dance floor, and then they would spray foam in where the foam would go, as that one photo showed, right up to basically their chest level, and then all kinds of unsavory things would happen underneath the foam. Now it's been said that he actually, in this case, it's up to between their chest and their necks. And Rubio said he met his wife at one of these foam parties. So I inquired about that, and what I got in response was a lot of women used to go to these events. They were spectators. And they basically got off on watching these gay guys, cavorting in the suds. I think after the Christie endorsement of Trump, I now understand why Chris Christie kept referring to Marco Rubio as the boy in the bubble. He says you got to get out of the bubble. Yeah, I think what he meant was the bubble bath.
This isn't the student council election, everybody. This is an election for President of the United States. Let's get the boy in the bubble out of the bubble and let's see him play.
And not to be outdone, Ted Cruz is voicing his opinion on Trump's immigration stance in San Antonio. The Dallas Morning News reports the U.S. Senator looking to lock down Texas ahead of Super Tuesday seized upon a BuzzFeed News report that Trump allegedly told the New York Times editorial board in an off-the-record interview that he doesn't believe what he's saying on immigration. Ted Cruz says the voters deserve to know if he says something different when he's talking to the New York Times than when he does when he's talking to the voters, arguing that Trump supports open border Democrats and saying that we need to know before Super Tuesday. Peeling off the veneer of disinformation and fake racism by obvious support, courtesy of Hispanic Americans, reveals that a growing majority of Hispanic Americans understand what Trump is truly saying when he declares that we need to close our borders, recently garnering 44% of the Latino vote at the Nevada caucus. But the naysayers continue to cover their ears because the truth hurts, literally, especially when it's loaded with disease, crime, and terrorism. John Bound for Infowars.com.
In the decade after iodine was added to staple foods, there was a 15-point increase in IQs in the areas that had previously been deficient. This is something on record our bodies need. I've gone out and found the best source for myself and my family. I hope you'll visit NoWorldOrder.com and get our InfoWars Life Survival Shield, because all of my research shows this is absolutely key to getting people out of the brain fog that they've been artificially put into by the social engineers.
My name is Alex Jones. Most of you know me from my syndicated radio program and my documentary films, as well as InfoWars Nightly News. When I got on air 20 years ago, I had discovered the globalist program, their plan to take over the world, and my focus went from running 6 miles every other day, swimming 2-3 miles a couple times a week, and lifting weights, to focusing on fighting the globalists. I've gone from 279 pounds all the way down to 235 pounds, and the weight's going off even faster. And it wasn't just that my weight loss accelerated. My muscle mass increased. My stamina, my energy levels exploded. Super Male has the key concentrated natural compounds that my body needed to go to the next level. Today is the day to take the InfoWarsLife.com challenge and to secure your bottle of Super Male or Super Female Vitality. Check them out today at InfoWarsLife.com or give our crew a call at 888-253-3139. About a year and a half ago, Anthony Gucciardi just said, man, I just did a Dr. Gribb's liver cleanse, the one he recommends, and he's developing this proprietary stuff he's testing on himself right now. You really ought to do it. The results are dramatic after 6 days. And I'm like, no way I'm doing it. I don't believe that there's giant black or green balls in my gallbladder. And this is how ignorant I am. And he's like, look at it online. I'm not looking at it online, because stuff like that grosses me out. I don't want to go there. Well, finally, about 6 months ago, they convinced me to do it.
I personally think everybody should go through a liver cleansing if you haven't done one. Results speak for themselves. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have done this, and it dates back even 1,000 years, drinking oils to cleanse and purge the liver. Actually, the Greeks and over in India with Ayurvedic medicine have done it the same way. But how it works is, what you should do, and this is what our proprietary research led us to do back starting in the early 90s, when we were looking at the best ways to cleanse the liver, was to develop an herbal formula that contains herbs that will help soften or break down these globules or these stones in the liver and the gallbladder.
This liver shield is the high-quality proprietary liver Trex developed by Dr. Gribb that we've private labeled through him, and it's extremely strong, extremely concentrated, extremely high-powered. You combine that with the Oxy Powder, oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, dietary supplement, clinically tested. We have them discounted at the lowest price you're going to find anywhere. InfoWarsLife.com. Obviously, folks should probably talk to their healthcare provider before they do this. This is one of the single biggest results, if not the biggest, I've ever seen in my life, literally in a 6-day period. This is something anybody can do. Obviously, the literature is well known on what liver cleanses do. This is the best one out there from our research. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139.
Welcome back to the InfoWars Nightly News live coverage of Super Tuesday. We've got several callers still on the line. We're going to go to them. Hang on, callers. We'll be right with you. Before we do, we want to check in with Kit Daniels. Go ahead, Kit. Okay, Kit's not there just yet. Leanne McAdoo is with me. I was just looking, Leanne, at the vote totals, and we're starting to see the states coming in. We've had 6 states that have been won by Donald Trump so far, 2 by Cruz. That'd be Oklahoma and Texas. And those 2, Donald Trump came in second. Cruz had 4 second-place finishes. Most of the rest of the situation was Marco Rubio in bronze. It looks like Rubio might get his first-place finish in Minnesota. Not too many delegates, though.
Well, you know, and he hasn't won anything just yet, but he's already making the rounds in the media with his victory speech.
Can you imagine if he wins the state?
Like, you didn't win anything,
He'll have a big foam party in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Let's go to Kit Daniels. Kit.
Absolutely, David. I got an excellent tweet here from a truther. It says, Alex, why is the establishment helping only Rubio? Well, me personally, I think it's because Rubio is probably the most compromised of these candidates still in the race. And when a politician's compromised, he's easier to control. I'm talking about his gay past in South Beach, Florida back in the 90s. And I'm not saying that I'm against his alleged gay past, his reported gay past, but when he's running as a devout Catholic trying to get an evangelical vote, you know, he just sounds like a hypocrite. What do you think, David?
Well, I think he sounds like a hypocrite when he's running as a conservative.
I think he can be programmed very easily. That's what I think.
He will give the establishment and he will give the globalists everything they want. He will enact every aspect of their agenda, whether it's a massive increase in the military-industrialized complex, whether it's a massive increase in the police state, more spying, more wars, a globalist trade treaty, globalist consolidation of sovereignty into a international commission that's going to control our economy. He'll do all of those things. That's what they want. He's their guy. He is totally malleable. He's totally submissive to the people who control him.
And maybe they just want to have some foam parties at the White House.
Who knows? Who knows?
The things they do at the Bohemian Grover.
Anything else you want to add, Kit?
Yeah, got the Minnesota results are starting to come in, and it looks like Marco Rubio might actually win a state in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got 10% reporting. They haven't called it for him, but
right
he's
now I
at 37%.
show 37% reporting for Rubio, 28% for Cruz, and 21% for Trump.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a real outlier, I would say, in Minnesota. Oh, it's interesting. Earlier today, Rubio was campaigning in Minnesota, and he came after Jesse Ventura, and they had a snippet of him where he said, well, all of you who think that you're going to elect a celebrity, you elected a celebrity governor. How did that work out for you? He goes, Jesse Ventura was an embarrassment. No, I'll take that back. He is an embarrassment. And I thought, whoa, because Jesse Ventura was saying he was trying to decide between backing Bernie Sanders and backing Donald Trump. Maybe that will help him to know who to back, but it may be too late for Jesse to have any, well, it will be too late for him to have any impact in his home state. They're voting tonight, but he may sound off on things in the future.
I got a quick point I want to make, David. I think this overall this night is going to be a very devastating victory for Donald Trump because you see Rubio is going to say, hey, I won Minnesota. You know, I can stay in the race. I'm still competitive. But you also got Ted Cruz that's going to say, hey, I won 2 states. You know, I'm still competitive, this so and so forth. And that's exactly what Donald Trump wants. As long as Rubio and Cruz and even Carson are still in the race, and Kayash, I think I pronounced his name correctly.
Kasich.
Yeah, sorry.
Kayak.
Yeah,
Kayak,
it's almost like he's got a media
You
blackout.
know?
I don't even know how to pronounce his name. But as long as all these guys are still in the race, fighting each other, you know, Trump's going to keep pulling ahead.
Yeah.
He's going to pull away so far that he's going to be like a NASCAR race. He's going to lap the field.
Yeah.
Well, the key thing is, will he get enough delegates to sew up the nomination in the first round? And that's what they're trying to keep from happening. So we'll just have to see how that turns out. I would have liked to have seen him win Texas and basically get so many delegates that they're not going to have a chance to shut him down. But we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely, David. I mean, I think, honestly, regardless of what happened tonight, Trump could have swept every single state, and the establishment's still going to push for a brokered convention.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's not a surprise in Texas because we've seen that Ted Cruz was expected to win anywhere between 10 and 15 points. He won by, I think, 13 points. The situation in Oklahoma, he had 34. Trump had 29%. Rubio was close behind at 23%. So they were all fairly close. That's a little bit of a surprise. But as Roger Stone was saying, they had a lot of reports of voter irregularity in Arkansas as well as in Oklahoma. Arkansas, Trump did go ahead and that is one of the states that he won. So we'll just have to see what happens with that, if there's going to be any auditing of those vote totals or if they're just going to go with those totals. But time will tell. All right. Well, thank you very much, Kit. Let's go back to some of our callers who've been patiently waiting. Let's go to Teresa in Kentucky. Teresa, go ahead.
Yes, I'm calling because I'm Democratic. Well, I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to InfoWars for the last 4 to 5 months, and they've opened my eyes to what's been going on. I don't approve of what Mitch McConnell's doing, and most of Kentucky doesn't.
That's right.
And I just wanted to say thank you all for opening my eyes and letting me see the truth, and that Donald Trump is going to be the best person for our country.
Well, see, that's interesting because it's interesting that you would say that you've been a Democrat for a long time and that you'd be a Trump supporter. I think that's going to be happening a lot. I think a lot of people are looking at Trump because he is breaking this party monopoly that people have. Is that the way you feel about it?
Yes, I do. I'm tired. I'm tired of the rhetoric. I listen to you all. I go in and I can listen to CNN, Fox, and they say totally the opposite of what that man says.
Yeah.
Everything that they twist everything he has to say, and they twist it, and it's not right.
It's very obvious what they're doing, especially the last couple of days. You're talking about Mitch McConnell. Isn't it embarrassing that the leader of the Senate would stoop to such transparent and petty dirty tricks on such an important election day like this, that Mitch McConnell would be trying to hang this Ku Klux Klan moniker on Donald Trump? Is absolutely absurd, and it is beneath him. It should be beneath him. Unfortunately, it isn't, and it's not beneath Paul Ryan. And I think it's totally disgusting. I think it shows what the Republican Party is about, and it shows that there really is no difference between the leadership of the Republican Party and the leadership of the Democrat Party. There are some good people at the bottom of both parties, but at the top, it is thoroughly bought off, it's thoroughly corrupt, and that's why I think a lot of people are looking at an outsider like Donald Trump.
Right.
Well, I really appreciate you all opening my eyes. I appreciate everything that you all have come out with that I didn't see.
Well, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Teresa, and we'll see what happens. And I think it's going to be a lot of people who are going to be crossing lines just like they did back in the day for Ronald Reagan, because they were concerned about the economy. People know what is happening. I mean, just what we were talking about with NAFTA, the fact that you've got these CFR people going out and say, when Donald Trump says, hey, this is a disaster, as my wife said it, somebody from New York, NAFTA rhymes with disaster, That's the way she used to talk, and she still says that sometimes. And I guess it rhymes with Donald Trump. But what he's saying is, look, we need to renegotiate this or terminate it. And everybody understands that. And I've shown the graph. We've got a $58 billion trade deficit with Mexico this year. It's not a good deal for us. It hasn't been a good deal for us from the day we passed it. We saw these deficits swell and go in one direction and one direction only. It's been doing that now for 20-plus years, 23 years it's been doing that. It's time we wake up and see what is happening. Let's go to our final callers here. Let's go to Habu in Madison, Wisconsin. Habu.
Good evening, and thank you for the courtesy of appearing on your earth-shattering show.
Thank you for calling.
Greetings to Leanne, David, and the InfoWar team. Just 3 very quick points. One, it's fancy of Rubio to make such disparaging comments of Governor Jesse Ventura. This punk is not fit to polish Ventura's boots,
I agree. And I think he has really jumped the shark, quite literally. I mean, what he has done over the last several days is like a bad episode of Happy Days.
Yeah.
And he is looking absolutely ridiculous.
And he does this after everything. He's like...
Other comments, Habu?
Yeah. And 2 very quick ones. One is, one other good reason to have Trump in the race, and he's going to bring this upon on Hillary Clinton. He did this to Jeb Bush, and he completely excoriated G.W. Bush for the Iraq War. This country has not had a national conversation about the Iraq War and taken the people who took us to war, indicted them, let alone paying reparations to the hapless Iraqis who've been affected by it. So this guy will tear into Hillary. He did that to Jeb Bush, and that's why they probably spirited him off the stage so that this would not come up again. But it's going to come up with Hillary Clinton. And lastly, You know, I think a way to understand this voter fraud is to look at the case of how Volkswagen was fixing its emission results. It was doing it on the fly with the software that was kind of like used in a flexible way. And that's the same way these people manipulate the black box results.
A very good analogy. I absolutely agree with you. And when you're talking about the fact that he would do well against Hillary, I agree with you with that as well. He would point out that the Empress has no clothes. And he is, just as he did with Jeb Bush. And it's very important to have a candidate who will come out and say, where are the missing 28 pages? What about the fact that you lied about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, that you created a massive war that killed not only Americans, but just a vast number of people in this country unnecessarily for your particular agenda, and you lied about this. This is a matter of historical record, and yet you see that the establishment still wants to pretend that that didn't happen. It's absolutely amazing. Even though we all know it, even though Donald Trump points it out, they still want to try to move beyond that and pretend it didn't happen.
Right.
So it's very important that we have somebody that will stand up, pull back the curtain, or say that the emperor or the empress in this case doesn't have any clothes. I mean, that's a really big factor. There's just so many different issues that Donald Trump is bringing to the forefront that we really appreciate. We really appreciate your call. It's a great call, Habu. Let's go to Alfred in Florida. Alfred.
Hi, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to get some points here. I'm from Florida here in Tampa. Most of the Floridans are Hispanics. You know, we have come from Cuba. We know, my family know the Rubio family, and we know who is behind all this, the Lincoln family, and this woman, I don't know her name right now, but they are behind all that. They steal money from the healthcare, and they have stuff like that in Miami.
Right.
Right now, most of the 45% of Cubans support Trump. I mean, that's something Trump have win Florida. I mean, that's something to do for choice. I mean, that's wrong.
Well, I grew up in Florida, and I know that most of the Cubans that I knew, I knew a lot of Cubans in Tampa. I played in a lot of bands with Cubans, and I know that for the most part, the Cuban people there were conservative. They were Republicans. And so they're a big part of the Republican Party. And I'm not surprised that they would reject Marco Rubio if they know about his background, that they would support Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump represents to a lot of people, I think, economic opportunity. We saw that even with that Muslim lady who disagreed with them on the immigration issue. She said, I want economic opportunity here in America. I'm not seeing the economic opportunity that I came here for. And so I think that's true of people, of Cubans. I think it's true when we looked at the counties and the cities that were on the border. I think a lot of people who have immigrated into this country want to have security. They want to have prosperity. And they understand we're not going to get that if we follow the policies of the Republicans and the Democrats. Your comments. Go ahead.
And then another thing. Mexico, for their part, we got some Cubans coming in because they are afraid that Obama take the law. You know, we Cubans are legal in this country, you know, like Puerto Ricans. But they are afraid that they lose that thing, and then they come in through the border, and then Mexico deport them every day. They deport 3,000 Cubans every day to Cuba, back to Cuba.
Right, totally hypocritical.
Yeah, and other things like that. We are supporting Mr. Trump here in Tampa, Florida. We live in here. We're up in Louisville, Kentucky. I came when I was 12 years old, but now I'm 22. Actually, a friend. I'm telling every Hispanic that told me, except Cubans, say, hey, you voting for him? Why are you voting for him? I got a big poster on my car that say Trump. And they say, what are you voting for him? You see, you're really dark to vote for him. I'll say, why I have to vote for another people that don't want to give us what we want.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Marco Rubio didn't even show up for half of the votes there. What did he do for Florida?
Well, what you said there is very important. We're Americans first. And that's what Vicente Fox, former president of Mexico, doesn't understand when he talks about his outrage at the fact that 44% of Hispanics in the GOP primary in Nevada voted for Donald Trump. He said, What's the matter with you? Okay, if you're not going to do it for your race, then do it for your host country. And it's like they don't see America as their host country. If it's their host country, they don't see themselves as Americans. Maybe they're not American citizens. If they're not American citizens, they shouldn't be voting. That's part of the issue. But people who see America as their country, people who want to come here and prosper, they're getting beyond this racism. That is the technique by which they control people, especially the Democrats. And you see with the media how
they're really pushing this racism thing, and it's a non-issue. And as we've been tweeting at CNN and MSNBC, and on the other side, on the Democratic side, there is actual people running for president that are in support of notable KKK members, right? But they're Robert Byrd. That's fine.
Robert Byrd and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, all that. But yeah, don't talk about that. And yet you got their daughter talking about how Republicans are racist, sexist, and what was the other thing? Homophobic. There you go. So she has 75 people show up to hear her talk about it because
her buzzword.
Yeah, let's play Clinton saying that. Let's have her saying that. Go ahead. Let's run that clip. Or maybe we don't have that clip.
Surpassing eloquence and nobility. And I will remember him for many things, but most of all, for a heartfelt comment he made to me in the dark days following the attack on our country on 9/11.
Let's lynch him.
My state of New York was reeling, and we were scrambling to provide support and
She's talking about Robert Byrd, the guy who is a high-ranking Ku Klux Klan member. They just love him.
He created
the Eternal
his own
Cyclops? Is that what he was?
I don't know what his office
exalted
was.
Cyclops of the Ku Klux Klan.
Cyclops.
He created his own chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. And we have another clip. I don't know if you go to the Twitter, you'll see it. It's there where Bill Clinton, after he died, is giving a sort of a eulogy or something. And he's talking about, there's some rumors that he was involved in the KKK, you know.
Yeah, they got that clip. Let's play that clip.
Yeah, let's let him tell.
And then we'll go to our last caller.
Now, know this. Everybody else has been canonizing Senator Byrd. I'd like to humanize him a little bit.
Canonize him.
Because I think it makes him more interesting and makes his service all the more important.
Oh, so important.
There are a lot of people who wrote these
I did
eulogies
not disavow
for Senator
that
Byrd
woman
in the newspapers, and I read a bunch of them, and they mentioned that he once had a fleeting association with a Ku Klux Klan.
Association.
I'll tell you what it means.
He was the exalted Cyclops.
He was a country boy from the hills and hollows of West Virginia. He was trying to get elected.
Oh, so he had
good old boy.
And maybe he did something he shouldn't have done.
Like Mena, Arkansas?
His life making it up.
Because that's what good
That's
people...
what a good person does.
Oh, good people don't join the KKK to get elected president.
I got to say this. I got to say this in defense of Robert Byrd, okay? The things that he's accused of are far less than what the Clintons are accused of.
Yeah.
So let's understand that he did not have a lynching with that group, okay?
Yeah. And let's understand, too, that apparently Bill is saying that Robert Byrd had to join the KKK in order to become the Democratic representative there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's the way the Democrat Party was, right? I mean, that's just the Democrat Party was the party of the Ku Klux Klan.
That depends on what your meaning of KKK is.
So he just had to
David
join.
and Leanne.
He just had to join the KKK because that was
how you get. He wanted to
the
get
Democrat
elected.
Party. Yeah. Let's go to our last caller, and then we're going to wrap things up. Richard in Arizona. Go ahead, Richard. Thank you for holding.
Yeah, thank you, David and Leanne, for a great show. I just have two things I wanted to say. One of them to everybody, and the other one to Donald Trump if he listens to your show on this episode. And the one I want to say to everybody is that how is it that we got so dumbed down that we don't realize this delegate system as well as the party system are completely irrelevant, have no redeeming qualities at all, and are just preventing the vote from being accurate from the American people.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think people will start to understand that after this election, because on both sides, with Bernie Sanders supporters as well as Trump supporters, they're really paying attention and they're understanding now how the delegate system works and why it's so important.
Yeah.
So I think people will start waking up to that.
Go ahead, Richard.
It's just organized crime, and it's amazing that it's allowed to happen. The other thing I want to say to Trump, whom I greatly appreciate, and I'm just in awe of his courage and honesty and sincerity, is that no matter how great of a negotiator you are, there's two things that you have to do if you want to save the economy and bring it back. One is that all of these free trade agreements We're being fooled by words. They need to be dumped. They're worth nothing, and they're designed from NAFTA on.
It's like a Bernie
to destroy
Sanders
the American economy, and they work really well. They're very effective, and they're totally national suicide. And the other thing that you have to do is you have to immediately get rid of the Federal Reserve and possibly indict the people responsible for it, because protectionism, which we're just trained like a Pavlov response to think that protectionism is bad. Protectionism is when you're protecting your own country, and every country needs to do that, and that's national security.
That's right. I agree with that. Great points, Richard. I absolutely agree with that. You talk about it being national suicide. I believe that Donald Trump knows that. He has been tutored by Senator Sessions since last August. Senator Sessions endorsed him. He understands that this is a sovereignty issue. This isn't just simply a bad trade deal. It is much bigger than that. Yeah, and so he understands all of that, I believe. And I think when you talk about the fact that people are going to wake up because they're involved in this, I got involved in third-party politics 25 years ago. And once you see the system, once you look at it closely, you can never forget what you see. And a lot of people are taking a close look at this system for the first time.
Right.
They're seeing the corruption. They're seeing how it is rigged. And I think it is going to be a transformational thing, no matter what happens. I think Donald Trump is going to win, but it's going to be a transformational thing no matter what happens. I think we've got Kit Daniels ready to say one more thing. Let's go to Kit. Go ahead, Kit.
Yeah, absolutely, David. I got an excellent tweet here from Syrian Girl. It says, remember, Trump is the only strong candidate who isn't calling for World War III.
That's right.
I think it's like Obama's bombed, I think like 6, 7 countries. I think Bush before him only bombed 4.
Well, that's how he had to get the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, exactly. He got the Nobel Peace Prize and then he bombed a Nobel Peace Prize winner like the Doctors Without Borders. I think he's the only Peace Prize winner that bombed another Peace Prize winner. It reminds me of this quote from Carol Quigley that I just love. It's how he said that the elite, they don't want a severe change in policy between presidencies. So that's why you have Republican and Democratic presidents. They pretty much act the same. They campaign differently, but once they're in the White House, they're completely the same. That's why you see now, like, presidents are kind of in a fraternity of ex-presidents, if you will. You see all these photos of Bush with Carter and Clinton, and back in the day, Nixon when he was still alive, all shaking hands, holding, hugging each other for photo opportunity, even though they're all different. Burning
child effigies and sacrifice at Bohemian Grove together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, it's the whole two-party system, and, when it comes to establishment, it's just a front. It gives the public the perception that they hate each other when in reality they're best buddies.
Right.
It's so phony. And that's why I said I would much rather have a guy come at me with a gun to rob me than to pick my pocket without me even knowing it. And that's what we've had for a very long time. The last caller, when he was talking about the national sovereignty issue, the point you just brought up, Kit, about Syria and Syrian Girl saying he's the only one, Trump is the only one who's not trying to take us into war. Senator Sessions, remember, talked to Leon Panetta and said, who makes that decision? And Leon Panetta, Secretary of Defense at the time, said, well, we'd talk to the United Nations, or maybe we would talk to NATO. But
that's it, David, because when you think about it,
at the time.
Yeah. But when you think about when Obama calls for war, when George W. Bush called for war, when even his father called for war, it wasn't their plan. It was the neocon think tanks in Washington, D.C. They're the ones that came up with the New American Century to balkanize the Middle East. Yeah. That is their plan. These presidents are just puppets that follow along with the plan. And that's why they hate Trump, because they not only cannot control him, he's not going to be their puppet, Yeah.
Right.
And Leon Panetta was absolutely unashamed. He just said that. Senator Sessions says, I can't believe what I'm hearing. You're a congressman. You know better than this. And goes, well, that's what we would do. Yeah, I'm not going to apologize for this. They are absolutely out front about it. And finally, we've got a candidate who will stand up and be absolutely out front about what they're doing and confront them on this. That's what they don't like. They would rather have anybody in the world. And we've seen this happen. I think it was Senator Ben Sasse who said, I would vote for any human being on earth other than Donald Trump. Because
they're all saying they'd rather have Hillary win.
Yeah. And remember, Sasse is the one that was bankrolled by the Koch brothers. And that goes back to my point about being a puppet. He's saying exactly what the Koch brothers wanted him to say back on Thursday when they had that meeting in New York about backing another candidate, having a new candidate enter the race.
Yeah.
Then he goes on air like a couple days later saying the exact same thing. Oh, there's going to be new candidates entering the race against Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to wrap it at this point for our coverage of Super Tuesday. And remember that you've still got 2 hours to take advantage of this extended leap year sale that we have at NoWorldOrder.com. 30% off everything at InfoWars Store and InfoWarsLife.com. 30% off plus free shipping on orders greater than $50. And that's a big savings if you order some of our select storage food products that are there. That can get very heavy. So now is the time to stock up on this unprecedented sale. 30% off and free shipping. That's going to run through midnight, which is just under 2 hours from now. We may extend it through the end of the show tomorrow, but just to be sure, you might want to go by and take advantage of those savings. Thank you for joining us tonight. And, of course, we're going to be picking this apart and looking at the data and seeing what is going to be coming up in the future. Remember that website that Roger Stone put out earlier, stopthesteal.org. You need to get involved. You need to pay attention to the many different ways that they try to steal the elections. That's from ballot access to debate access to trying to stuff the ballots, to trying to change the way that they're counted, to trying to make sure that they stuff the delegates at the convention. They have so many different tricks up their sleeve. That's why we're always so concerned about elections. And don't forget, there's many things you can do as an individual with jury nullification and voting at the state and local level. Not everything depends on the presidential race, but this is a transformational moment. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Super Tuesday coverage. David Knight and Leanne McAdoo.
Good night.
Good night.
And it's time for humanity to stand up in the info war and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Did you know that only 6 corporations control 90% of what millions of Americans see, hear, and read every single day? It's the illusion of choice. Think about it. The mainstream media is owned by only a handful of megacorporations with vested interests. But on the other hand, the internet is an interconnected network of billions of sources. So you can research information for yourself from multiple sources, or you can blindly accept what you hear or read in the mainstream media, never questioning what you are being told. This gives you a false sense of reality. I mean, do you actually know what you think you know? Or have you been programmed to accept someone else's version of events? Think about it. This is Darren McBreen, and I want you to break the matrix at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv and listen to The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on your mind.